Hello, and welcome to Spotlight, the official podcast of GRAPPL. I'm Benno.
I'm JP.
I'm Gareth.
And I'm Matty.
And it must be the start of a fresh month as we move. Spooky season is over. November is starting. Matty's celebrating in his dressing gown here for video viewers. We conned him into coming onto the main show for the first 10 minutes. He's got COVID. Yeah, we shouldn't take it too lightly, Matty. How you holding up, mate? I know the patrons know, but I'm sure the listenership want to know that you're surviving.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just dosing up on me tablets and water, keeping hydrated and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm okay. Cracking on.
It's going round, you know, mate. I don't know if anyone said that to you, but it's going round.
50 people have said that. I even said it to JP before, so I'm guilty now.
But yeah, we've got Gareth here as well. How's it going, Gareth? We're just chatting in the pre-show about our pissed up adventures last week. We're getting you, and we were saying as well, we're getting you fully on board. We've got how many hours away are we from you being up to date on AEW? About 1 hour, did I hear?
One. I was hopefully going to be totally up to date by tonight, but if I'm staying on here for a bit, I might have just fucked that up. So I might have to try and watch it tomorrow. got to get it done before Dynamite, so I at least get that small window where I can say I'm up to date.
Yeah. Well, that's it. What's better to spend your week doing? Catching up with AEW or watching Halloween Havoc 2000, which is what we all did this week. I'm proud of us, man. We've gotten through Spooky Month. We survived. I'm blaming you, Matty. Another one of your inventions this Spooky Month on GRAPPL Patreon. I'm blaming you as well for Halloween Havoc 2000 being the show we had to review.
No, that was actually nothing to do with me at all.
Russo didn't even
I feel like the pay-per-view have nothing to do with Russo, isn't it? It's got parallels.
You were defending some of the stuff on it though, Matty. You know, you had a great time. You love a bit of WCW 2000. There's something in the water because John and Way are reviewing a WCW 2000 show this week as well. I've seen, I think Jeff Jarrett on My World talked. I haven't listened to it yet. Talked the Sting match on his show this week as well, which took up a lot of the conversation. It's probably that was like the Mirage and the Storm, wasn't it? That was the one good, not good, but enjoyable thing for me. I knew the entire show. Look forward to hearing Jeff's take on it.
Yeah,
as long as we get confirmation if it's Bill Eadie or not, that's what I want.
Yeah, that was wild. You blew my mind with that, Gareth.
If that's correct, but if he, hopefully Jeff gives us the full 5. Like, I want to know who they all are accurately. Like, but fucking hell, yeah, that was the high spot. 2.5.
Yeah, pretty much. Gareth, as a spoiler / I don't know, teaser, Gareth gave the lowest star rating he's ever given for his life on that Halloween Havoc 2000. So it's all in the bag. And the entire month of October, like I say, we did that. We did our Spooky Moment show with Robert Brocky, and you guys did the film club on Saw, and there was an observe this early in the month as well. So if you're in the festive mood, it is Halloween tonight, do check that stuff out. But yeah, reason we got you two lads on the pre-show is we've got some fun stuff coming up for November. I'm gonna go through the full schedule in a minute, but I feel like I need to hand over to you two lads who've been cooking something up in the background here, haven't you? Just a possible new show coming to GRAPPL Patreon after the great reception the time got, Matty. Got to throw another idea in there.
Well, it's been about a year in the making, Gareth. Would you say?
Yeah. Was it that night out?
Last Christmas.
Was it that Christmas night out? We discussed this, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'll let you do the hard sell, Gareth, but I'll just say that it's a new show coming up celebrating the one and only Bret the Hitman Hart, and it's going to be called Bretro. Credit to Gareth for that title. So, do you want to let everyone know what it's going to be like? Break it down even more, Gareth.
Yeah, so obviously we spent a lot of time last month watching a lot of stuff about Shawn Michaels in 1996. So this is a little palate cleanser for everybody on the back of that, as we can watch a lot more Bret Hart and just get into the weeds, really. I think triggered a little bit by Crewy as well at your wedding when he was saying to me about, but what good matches has Bret had apart from the obvious ones and things like that as well? So that was one was like right, I want to do something where we pull out Bret stuff that's not the obvious as well, really. So so we've gone from doing 1 match a show to doing 2 match a show, and I think and from now I think we're going to be picking a big title win and then picking another match as well. But for the first episode, picking 2 big ones, 2 big world title.
It is, but it's by proxy because you thought that one of them, which we're not going to say here though, is more one that people haven't seen mainly or don't go on about as much, isn't it? Really, even though they are title wins. So the premise will be a big match and then like maybe more like a deep cut one that like is just, you know, you've got some names down on your spreadsheet there, Gareth, that when I seen it, I was like, yes, this is going to be the good stuff that like doesn't get spoken about. So yeah, we'll looking forward to it so much. Really am.
Yeah, this is where you like going in and you're picking out shows and you're picking Saturday night's main events, or you're picking something that was like maybe, you know, a dark match or something like that.
Handheld.
That's made tape and things like that. So there's a few classics there. I've got a big spreadsheet on the go, so we'll at least get 10 episodes out of Bretro, and then and get him on episode 10.
Yeah, that's the game.
And then me and JP will start Sean, the Sean row. Sean I'll have to talk JP into that, unfortunately. Maybe Steph will do it.
No, JP will end up on our team, won't he? He'll end up down on our show.
I'm there all the way.
Yeah.
Oh, it just sounds glorious. I want to hear you two going through a load of Stampede stuff as well. Like just sort of going now. Early Brett was class as well at the same time.
There's some on the spreadsheet. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Sean as well, where each month you do one tantrum and one title handover, like each episode, and you just go through it in great depth.
No, genuinely can't wait for it to drop. Obviously, it's going to be first for patrons and then for everyone else. So if you want to get on the Patreon or become a YouTube member, you'll be able to get first access to the show, and then it'll go out to the rest of the world after that this month. But it's very much I feel like we said this last year, didn't we, Matty? Last year was Montreal month. We did in November, and we kind of fell into like a Brett theme month again, pretty much for the year. So I think every year now we just need to think like Brett theme shows as we go through for video viewers. Throw the schedule up on the screen for this month, as we'll be talking obviously Bretro will be debuting, which is the big one, the crown jewel of this month. But yeah, on top of that, a few other shows coming. 5-1 top 5 tag teams is going to be on, which I think we all know Brett might be making an appearance in that.
That's what I was going to say. Is someone going to pick Brett? Yeah, is someone going to pick a Survivor Series match he was in? We nailed on for that.
He'll be on everything, won't he? So yeah, we'll have a mixtape coming up this month where we're looking at the best Survivor Series matches, which I think you said, Matty, half are going to be proper Survivor Series matches, half are going to be singles matches from Survivor Series pay-per-views, similar to the vein you guys did the SummerSlam one in August, right?
Yeah, one's definitely a traditional elimination match, and then another match from a Survivor Series show. I think that gives a good mix. That.
There we go. So yeah, that's going to be coming up. Obviously, we've got Simon Mulvaney's King of the Mountain pick is coming there this month as well. Simon's in the chat there saying we call the Sean one Contro. That could be the name.
Just thinking that.
Maybe that's his idea. We're going to be finding out in the next couple of weeks. And also going to bring back month 1 as well, which we enjoyed doing for both Raw and Nitro, and we did it for TNA, didn't we? Actually, now I think about it, way back when. So yeah, we're going to be putting a poll up, but. After the Halloween Havoc 2000 debacle, it's only going to be good shit. Only good stuff on the poll. We've got a couple of ideas so far. We'll be fattening it up, but it'll be a distinct group. A couple of ideas we got so far. Shotgun Saturday Night. Maybe we'll do month 1 of that. Of course, 1997 because we love 1997.
You do,
ECW, but the Vince version, WWE, ECW, the CM Punk kind of years, or that first introductory month that was in there. Were there any others we had there at the minute, Matty? Not definite yet, but we'll likely go on the poll.
Yeah, we've got OVW, the TV show, the original one of that. We've got one you threw in there, obviously, Ben, is ROH on the HD net. Was it? What year is that? Is that like
2010 or so?
2010, yeah. So they're the ones. And Thunder as well was another option that got floated about. So,
not World of Sport.
But we'll make sure. We don't trust the patrons anymore after what they put us through. But no, excited.
Give them an inch and it takes 3 miles. That's what we learned.
Like you said, JP, though, if you voted for Halloween Havoc 2000, you've got to watch it. So be careful with your vote there. But yeah, anything there you're looking forward to this month, JP? Got looks like a crack of that to me, as with the
I think it looks like
as well.
It looks like a cracking month because the variety is there. I have to say 5-1 top 5 tag teams. Because my initial thought was, well, am I just going to be recounting effectively my WWF and WCW watching up until about like sort of 1994, 95? but I'm fascinated to see what we'll come out with as well. I know Gareth did a little test on AI findings.
Yeah, that was
out about as well. Not far off.
What did AI say, Gareth?
Oh, who was it? It had like Legion of Doom was number 1.
Dudley Boys were in there.
I haven't got my phone. I think it was Legion
it says
of Doom,
Legion of Doom.
Boys.
You should say Road Warriors.
Yeah, I think Half Foundation were 3.
Rock and Rolls were in there, and the Midnights. I think they were 4 and 5.
Midnights weren't 5.
I weren't in there, no.
But no Usos in the top 10 when I asked them to do top 10 either. So you won't be down with the old AI.
I was going to say I'm not a fan then.
Prefer the physical brain, don't you, rather than the automated one.
No, but I'm looking forward to that so much because, like, I think we said, didn't we? It's going to be favourite more than best. So I think the variety on that, like the 20 choices, are going to be like a lot of variety there.
Definitely. Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame of the Young Bucks getting on your group, Matty, 100%. Yeah, definitely going to go on there.
I thought they'd be yours. I don't think you'd be on bus. That's you. Come on, you're definitely going to pick them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I might surprise you with a couple. I might go a bit 80s. Might go. You know, it's tough. It depends on the. I don't know. There's definitely periods where tag team wrestling's been in the fucking toilet, and so it's like I think there's going to be. It's like when we said we were going to do managers, like everyone would have Bobby Heenan, wouldn't they? I think with tag teams, there's going to be a couple everyone has, but I'm expecting some wild cards, definitely.
Yeah, especially with it being favourites. If it was best, I'd say, there'd be a lot of crossover, you know what I mean? But I think with it being favourites, as JP said, he's going to go back to his the glory days. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Be a great laugh.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Plenty to look forward to in November. Like I say, top 5 tag teams, Survivor Series matches, month 1, a Simon show, and of course, Bretro, all coming to patreon.com/GRAPPL. Plus, I was told in the pre-show a full tour of my flat is coming, but I think that might be a December show where Matty's going to break in. He has got a spare key to mine. I'm terrified. Through the keyhole at Benno's house, also coming to GRAPPL Patreon/YouTube members. Is that the plan, Matt?
Oh, mate, it's just that fridge, Benno. It's just and fridge and cupboards, and that could just be it. That could just be the whole show, breaking down every single item of food or whatever there's in that there. Amazing stuff.
I told you I want you in the full Swerve Strickland jacket with the patches and everything like that.
Can Seth walk in dancing like that as we tear up Benno's Sean picture that he's got on the fridge door?
My camera person, can't she? Yes, you have to come with me and hold the camera, to be fair. So, no, Ben's a good sport. Ben's a good sport.
Fucking scared. There you go. Christmas content. But yeah, we'll plug all that in December and we'll see what I allow you to do. I've got a month to change the lock, so we'll see what happens. But on that note, we'll let you two run after I conjure to come on the main show. Unless you've got anything major to say, Matty, about any big Japan matches or anything else we're covering on the main show today.
No, well, I'm going to be listening intently here because, as I say, I'm on the couch all week. So whatever JP recommends, I might give it a watch here. And JP, of course, mate. But I'm interested to see what you say about Raw and SmackDown, Benno. That's what I'm listening now for.
Yeah, 2 hours 59 minutes and like the 30 seconds there, you'll get all my takes. Right? Hey, LA Knight's looking good. I'll always defend them. I've got things to say on that. But, and the Creeds look good on Raw, I thought. Other than that, that's about it. But yeah, anything from you guys before you go?
Nah, just looking forward to it. I'm nearly up to date. I'm going to go and finish that hour of Collision, and then I can listen to Spotlight tomorrow and spoiler free. I'm totally up to date. Looking forward to it.
Good to have you back. Fans of Gareth, don't fret. We will have Gareth on a main show soon. Obviously, Matty, you'll be back for the Crown Jewel review, won't you? So plenty to look forward to with you two. But yeah, nice one, lads, for jumping on the main show.
Good show.
I'll catch you again soon.
See you later, lads.
There we go. So yeah, on that note, JP, Pac month coming up in November. But on top of that, obviously, we've got a lot to talk about today. Lots of AEW stuff, as we mentioned there. Omega MJF is probably where we're going to start. Talk my trip to TNA and the Vladimir documentary as well. Definitely going to mention that and a few odds and sods at the end. But should we start hot? AEW, is it time to talk the big Collision show from the weekend? And it always works out, doesn't it? These Tuesday records. It means we get that little bit of extra information. Let us know in the comments. Do you prefer a Monday spotlight or a Tuesday spotlight? But with it being a Tuesday, we can, like I said, we can start hot with the big story, JP, as AEW Collision ratings are in, and we can talk the the effect that MJF and Kenny Omega had in the main event of Collision this week, against competition from the college football and the World Series. Collision did 472,000 viewers, down almost 9% from last week. Lowest audience that wasn't October 7th, and the second lowest viewership for a Collision episode that wasn't the same day as a big WWE show. 0.13 in the all-important 1849 JP. So there we go. We said that on the weekend show. We previewed this. We said we'll find out, was it worth it putting MJF versus Kenny Omega on TV on a few days' notice, and it has been clearly, Tony Khan putting on Twitter tonight that he's going to be having a big, important Tony Khan announcement on Dynamite. Isn't him panicking at all? Well, JP, great idea, great execution. To be fair, it was great execution, but still, I think we can call that one as it is at this point, maybe. Although the quarter hours do tell something of an encouraging story.
So that's it. Yeah, I mean, I have to confess, I haven't seen the quarter hours as of yet, but this was always going to happen. Partly because the World Series was always going to be starting on that particular day, which is always going to do a big number. Apparently, this is the lowest rated one for quite some time. But bloody hellfire! Like I thought, honestly to God, it felt like it was on a hiding to nothing. Whether or not the match is brilliant, I think there's a big takeaway, which is you can't just throw up like a first time kind of one of the very few kind of dream matches that you can have out there and not actually and expect it just to draw a big rating because it exists than anything else without any kind of build whatsoever. And that's not really a surprise. And the match being great and everything else, that wasn't a surprise in the slightest. But the idea of him now saying he's going to do a big announcement for Dynamite, that just scares me because it makes me think, it's panic mode and we're throwing shit up against a wall and seeing what sticks. And I don't like the idea of companies like that. I'm probably, again, scarred by the Patreon show talking about WCW Halloween Havoc 2000 for that. And they're not at that level. It's not like they're not dying or anything else, but they're really in danger of... We used to complain about them holding off stuff for too long, frankly. They threw this up with zero build for something that was clearly like a pay-per-view main event. We spoke about this last time. And for what benefit, really? Is it going to improve the attendance in other cities? I don't think we've seen anything on that front. It didn't do anything for the rating. I don't think it's going to affect, obviously, what people then think about Dynamite or Collision next week as well. So it just feels like it's just kind of on it doesn't work at all. I'm worried about kind of the direction of what he's doing in terms of that announcement has scared me. The fact he's doing a big one on there. What, we got another tournament, something else on there?
Yeah, I couldn't even guess what the announcement's going to be.
God knows.
I'd say that, to play devil's advocate, looking at I won't throw it up on the screen to protect the sanctity of the WrestleNomics Patreon, but the final two quarters did do well. 546,000 and 567,000, which was way up from the quarters before, which were 448 and down to 424 the quarter before. So you're talking like 100,000 jump in overall viewers, and the demo was up as well from 183,000 up to 217,000 for the last quarter. I think that's encouraging. And we've seen that with Collision over time, where it's a given, isn't it, on Dynamite that the main event's always going to do the worst quarter. That's just what happens in wrestling. It's I've always made the point. No, that did happen with WWE when Raw went to 3 hours, but historically that was not the case. That was not how things worked, and it shows that people recognize that was the most important thing on the show. Fortunately, they recognize to the tune of 550,000 odd viewers, which you can call that a minor win if you're just looking at the pure quarter hours, but clearly, it's a lot less people than you'd want watching really your two top wrestlers working each other, or it's 40,000 by pay-per-view put on free TV on a Saturday when everyone's either out celebrating Halloween or they're out, or there was, obviously, very big competition as well on the night. I think that's the biggest thing about it, because I love the match. I actually thought from AEW's TV this week, Rampage did a good job selling it. The little back and forth that Kenny and MJF had was really good. They gave it the hard sell. MJF kind of sat into a camera, not MJF, sorry, Kenny Omega sat into a camera, almost convinced me he cared about the match, which is a big compliment I can give a Kenny Omega promo at times, because most of the time he struggles to take life very seriously. Like, they sold it. It was just too late. It was on a Rampage that was seen by 300 to 400,000 people, and like I say, the match itself was on Collision. I guess the thinking was, if they hadn't done it against all that competition, it'd be even worse. Maybe there's a timing issue we're not aware of. Either MJF is literally going to be losing the title in the foreseeable future, so it was like now or never. Maybe Kenny's taking some time off, or maybe there's just, for whatever reason, it wouldn't fit into the grand scheme of things. Because it's like, I heard, Gareth say from the little bits he's been catching up with, he was more positive on the match taking place. I think it's a point, to be fair, we've made on the show a couple of times, that like, we do complain about AEW not putting their big time main event talent against each other. And, a big complaint I had on the weekend show this week as well. Are you going to do a finish? We all know it's going to be a fuck finish. Actually, credit to AEW, it wasn't a fuck finish. MJF just won. So there is an element of that I almost want to encourage. Tony Khan leaves a lot on the table. Look at CM Punk. Look at what might happen with Bryan Danielson if he continues to get injured. Look at Cody Rhodes. There's been loads of occasions where big matches just don't happen in AEW when they should. So, do you buy that argument at all? That there's there's a positive to it, at least, that they've shown a little bit of willing and are actually trying to throw stuff at the wall.
This is the thing, and I was thinking about this when watching the match. Is I was going, well, this is the part of the issue of like wrestling television. Is it's not just the match in and of itself; it's the build that we kind of want to see. We want the excitement levels raised. So when a Hangman and a Strickland have like a confrontation in the ring, you then want to see the match. Yet in many ways we never got that to any kind of real meaningful degree, and this feels like something that should have been more meaningful. And I think that's probably it, is that ultimately we know that the match can kind of deliver, and you have to say about MJF, like in ring, like fucking hell, that's always been the one kind of like sticking spot, and I think that's gone in terms of that ever being a concern. But here, like, we want to see some build as well to it, and I think that's the kind of problem with it, is then you start like seeing it kind of being thrown out there. I get the argument. It's just, for me, like, this should be a match I should have been excited about, rather than fucking hell they're doing it in a week. Like, it should have been say, they're running pay-per-views every month, so effectively, why can't you do that? Why can't you hold off? What is the other thing that you need to have on this pay-per-view? Like him defending the Ring of Honor titles? Like, what I mean? I don't know, we've got all these other kind of challenges lined up. You can do them on a monthly basis. It's fine. And then you can have the build to it, and the story of MJF getting more and more worn down, perhaps more paranoid from the amount of challenges and other stuff like that. There's ways of telling these stories, and it doesn't have to be sports entertainment either. And this is a point that Gareth was raising in the pre-show as well, is that at times he's felt like this isn't like the AEW that I was wanting to kind of follow at times. They, you wanted to feel like they were going to do things properly. And we're scared still by like the specter of WCW. I am, because we were speaking about it 2 days ago, and you just see them just doing wacky stuff and introducing wacky stuff on like the TVs, and you go, no, it's too much. It doesn't make for good television. And as good as the match is and everything else, the rematch isn't going to have that kind of juice that first meeting between them that kind of would have with like an angry Kenny Omega wanting to go, right, you've beaten my record, I want that fucking title back, so then I can beat your record. There's simpler ways of telling these stories.
It feels a little bit for me like, I don't know, it feels like the pay-per-view arguments in a nutshell, where it's like, what are you moaning about? The pay-per-view was fucking incredible. And it's like, right, like all in. We had a fucking great day, didn't we? Great night. But but it could have meant more. The individual matches could have meant more. We could have built things a little bit better. We've said like literally every pay-per-view cycle for, a lot of people make the same arguments now, but it's arguments we've been making for about 18 months. Like every pay-per-view cycle, it's the same thing. Of course, the best wrestlers in the world, get in there, kill it, have incredible matches. But, you would like it all to mean a little bit more. And that's where I am with Kenny MJF. Like, Ben says here in our Patreon / YouTube member chat, you know, give him the MJF Kenny match, but don't give it to him with minimal effort. And that's kind of what it was, really. Because again, the match was great. I don't know what you give it as a star rating, you know, thing. Like, you've got, I think I go maybe 4.25 to 4.5, maybe even the high end of that, maybe more towards 4.5, because it was incredible. Shouldn't do down the way of the match. Was I entertained? Absolutely, I was. You know, I was in Coventry for TNA on Saturday. We got back to the hotel in time to kind of watch the match. And the other positive about it, I loved they gave it time. That's like the tradition of Collision since the Punk days. You know, it had that full time to breathe. There's a point I looked at the clock, like, okay, we must be going to the finishing sequence here. It was still like, you know, 10 to 2 or whatever. The clock's changed, didn't they? Like, yeah, you know, it was like 10 minutes, 10 to 1, I suppose, technically at that point. It was, you know, it was given time to breathe, and it was presented as a main event. It just, you can't get past the fact that it felt rushed. You know, the fact that MJF didn't even have his belt, you know, made it all feel a little bit rinky-dink, because we're telling that separate story with Jay White. And there were good elements to that too. Jay White having like a face-to-face with Kenny on Rampage, which kind of sold the idea that potentially Kenny could win, and we'd be going to Kenny versus Jay White. But again, that's something, you know, with a bit more time and patience, you could have told over, like, you know, a few weeks to a big show. That's what it was missing. But as far as the work itself, it was just a reminder of, like, one, like you say, MJF can always step up when need be. And, you know, I think that, like you say, those conversations are kind of dead at this point about him as an in-ring wrestler. And two, that Kenny Omega is just the best in the world. He's got that. It's still in him, you know. He's still got. He's a pro's pro, but in a good way, in an entertaining way. I usually use that as a slight, don't I? But like, just the, you know, the way he fit in perfectly to MJF's offense. It's a timing thing. It's him being in all the right places. It's the build of the match into like the big finishing sequence that we got here as well. There was just so much to love about the individual performances in the match. And yeah, I don't know that should necessarily get lost, JP, among the bigger conversation, which is, you know, some very confused booking in AEW right now.
It's almost so good it could have been like headlining a pay-per-view, to reiterate that point on there. You're right, it's a fantastic TV main event. I tell you what I was reminded by it in its own weird way. It was Kenny Omega versus Okada, but in the G1, when it felt like it was like a half an hour sprint. Like, that was the thing that I noticed. It was just sort of like the relentless pace of it, which is, he is one of the few workers in the world who can do that. And obviously, like, you know, him and Ospreay had managed to do it this year as well. Those kind of people who are able to kind of keep up as much as anything. I think the thing that, like, it's not like perfection, but it's probably as good again as TV wrestling goes. And this version of Kenny Omega, when it's been in AEW, has quite routinely ended up being at times like the best thing about it. Whether it be like the TV match he has against Pac, the one against Vikingo. It's almost like Kenny Omega as a single star presented as a serious wrestler is a really fucking good idea, and you should always kind of go for it. So that's a note, you know, for anyone ever wondering like why, you know, we were annoyed at him being in a trios match at Wembley and stuff like that. But as a company,
turns out he won't break if you put him in singles matches, JP. You know, he's been in a couple now in a couple of weeks. It's almost like he's just fucking give me Kyle Fletcher, give me MJF. Like, timing's a bit weird.
Exactly. He can go and do this stuff. It's just like, and we go back to what Ben said there earlier on. It's just that it didn't get the build up it deserved. This deserved to be on a much grander stage with
the million people
kind of been built into it as well. Yeah, it should be like a massive. It should have been like a massive match for them. And instead, it's happening at a place where I've just seen like Bellator pay-per-views in front of like 4,000 people on a casino in Connecticut. It's fucking that's a bit depressing. Like, really, for them to be doing that, to try and kind of hotshot things. And I think this is the thing that they've kind of forgotten, like, really where they are at times. And I think this is when they've got to think of themselves like as a television product and stuff, like going, if you don't have the build to stuff and you don't get people to get the investment, you're never going to draw like the kind of proper ratings that you really should do for things like this. But yeah, it feels like a point I end up laboring, and then by Wednesday, there's a whole other load of wacky shits that's going to be thrown at us as well.
Because the chat's alluding to, it could be Sting v Ric Flair last ever match. Maybe that's what.
Jesus Christ!
Like, could live without that.
What's the combined age of that? 30.
But again, but the counter is I want to see wrestlers in their quote unquote prime going at each other and giving away more freely than Tony does, and that's the dichotomy of this. That's Kenny and MJF on an island, great match. Want to see it. Want to see that happen in AEW. It's just what it's amongst, and it's what like I say, it feels like a lot of things in AEW right now. Because the other big news story we've absolutely got to talk about with AEW is old Jerry Lynn on Twitter this week going to bat for Tony Khan. Like, what is going like? So essentially, like Dave Meltzer reported in the Observer, and we talked a little bit about it on the weekend show on Friday. That obviously there's right now it feels a bit WWE in AEW with talent finding out last minute about plans and kind of having a lot of input, I think, as Dave put it, on their individual segments. But then when it actually comes to what's the overarching plan here, what's the story, where's it going, wrestlers are completely in the dark. And that's kind of reminiscent of the worst of Raw. That's reminiscent of the bad stuff and the company that we didn't want AEW to be in any way. But yeah, it's kind of where we are right now, and that I think that bleeds all over like the TV. Like, you can see it in every aspect of what's going on right now. Things are clearly, like say, MJF, Kenny Omega, it's clearly somebody's idea, 2.5 weeks ago, because somebody looked at a calendar and realized, oh fuck, the anniversary's coming up. Shit, let's do something. There's a lot of that, across the TV. Nothing necessarily that feels like overly thought out at the minute, or like anybody is sitting there and properly, or maybe Tony is still trying to do that. He's still trying to go off his spreadsheet, but you've had the Collision to the mix on top of Rampage, and now like it's all a bit of a cluster, and he's kind of pulling stuff out of his arse, and he's probably remembering the week of the show. Oh fuck, we've got a Carter this week. Oh fuck, we better get pushing that. That's happening next week. It kind of, that is the story right now in AEW. You can see it right across. Jerry Lynn replied to our friends at Wrestle Purist saying apparently it's because wrestlers and God knows who else are leaking to the seats, JP, and podcasts. So Tony's trying to keep things confidential. In his words, you wouldn't want to know everything before you see a movie. Anyone who leaks info is doing damage to the product and industry, said former source of Pro Wrestling Torch, Jerry Lynn. I'm just speculating. He was very close with the people who run the PW Torch at one point. But yeah, what do you make of Jerry Lynn's reaction to that criticism? And is that a reasonable defense of what Dave Meltzer has said, as transcribed by Wrestle Purists here? Finding things out last minute feels like a sloppy shop in general, and maybe that's the reason Tony wants to do it in some ways. Maybe just one day he's got pissed off at like a particular story getting leaked. But do you even remember like any of that happening? Can you think of like any examples of fuck, that story was ruined, or that match coming up was ruined because I read it in the sheets? Does that really happen that much with AEW to the point that it's worth allegedly being a reason to keeping the wrestlers in the dark?
It really isn't. And I also think as well, if it was stuff that was kind of, if there was a storyline and direction that people are going, oh, that's fucking cool, they're more likely to tune in because it's a very online aware audience that they have as well. So this kind of argument and stuff like that, it's where you're blaming other people. And I think this is the problem is that what we're not seeing from AEW is an element of introspection, of looking and going, we actually putting on the best product we can do. There's not a degree of honesty there. It's very, very defensive, whether it's Tony Khan Twitter rants or people within the company or telling fans off. And I always think when you go down that road, it's a very slippery slope, because are there people who are going to be arguing in bad faith? Yes. Are there also people who believe genuinely that constructive criticism is a good thing? Of course. And it appears to be that it's only positive voices in the room, and that's terrible, because then you are in a complete bubble and in a complete silo. And I always think like what we've seen, and it's the thing that we've kind of speculated, is it's not just, if it was only as simple as it's just Tony Khan making all of these decisions and he's coming up with a product, but there's loads of people feeding ideas and everything else. And a lot of those people, if we're going to be like, come from kind of like WWE and things like that. So you've got the sports entertainment influences in some way. And then talking about like podcasts and speaking to Dave Meltzer, Christopher Irvine, do I need to even talk about the EVPs, whose move is named after Dave Meltzer as well, and stuff like that? The idea of like kind of like berating that side of it. There's so many people who do that type of stuff there.
You got Jerry Lynn here, like literally replying to a fan. I've got it on screen for the video viewers, saying the fan says, "Find out who the leakers are," and then puts in brackets the Bucks and Jericho, and find them each time. It's simple. And Jerry Lynn just replies, "I was referring to the fans attending the movie, not the actors." Doesn't deny that that's probably happening, you know. But it's a very like, I mean, wrestlers are fucking stupid, aren't they? And like, as much as you know, Jerry Lynn's beloved, he falls into that banner because I think it you know, it reminds me of that conversation a couple of weeks ago. Was it Defy or somebody who was going to do an indie show where they were going to ban fans from bringing phones in, and fucking what's his name, RSP was on Twitter fighting fans, going, "Oh, why do you need your phone? You don't think you're journalists covering the show?" It's like, you know, I think you just misunderstand how people engage with media, and like, oh, you're making stuff for your own Instagram. Yes, that's how people watch stuff. Whether it's good or bad, watch anything. And you know, something happens in football or an actor's somewhere or anyone's at a gig, half the people there got the phones out making a little video for their Instagram. You might not like it, but that's just the world. And I'm not even against that. You know, I've been to comedy gigs where, you know, larger phones, so there's an argument for that. But it just felt like from his side, it was a misunderstanding of how people consume media. And that's how I feel about Jerry Lynn here as well. It's like, I don't think you understand how, like, I always bring this example up of like a Marvel or like, you know, the biggest properties in the world. Like, people want more. You know what I mean? There's a whole fucking industry out there of like, you know, hardcore fandom of wanting to know. It's not just wrestling where people want to know the ins and outs of what's going on, where news sites make money off of, you know, reporting on things, not that anything exactly like Jerry Lynn necessarily happens in wrestling these days. But you know what I mean? Like, that's, you know, you're kind of like, you're fighting a losing battle there, because who cares? You know, at the end of the day, if people are engaged, they're engaged. I think Jerry Lynn and wrestlers like him sometimes think like there's fans there. You know, we're going to talk about the Vladimir documentary later. Like, there's people like in their eyes, and I understand why they'd rather have like 10,000 Vlads there who were just like cheering the goodies and cheering the baddies and into it on face value. And those people do certainly exist. But I'd say the vast majority of fans of any media at this point, even down to like, if I go to my mum and dad's for tea and we talk about like, you know, stepdad's watching like Sopranos back, or he's watching Breaking Bad or whatever like that, he's not going to be like, "Oh, I hope Walter gets his revenge today." He's going to talk about whether the episode was good. And we've all got like that element of critical thought that you apply to every bit of media you watch. Football, you know, a lot of people, they cheer Everton and, you know, want them to win the games, but then spend, you know, the rest of the week, you know, talking about what went behind it, or why did the manager make that call? Why did this happen? What's the transfer gossip? And it's like, I feel like Jerry Lynn's trying to bring us back to a bygone era that probably never really existed, did it? Because I think nobody's watching wrestling these days thinking it's real and cheering the goodies and booing the baddies. We're watching it, and almost even like the more casual fans are critiquing it as art. They might not be on FOWonline.com or postwrestling.com, but they'll have a fucking website of choice where they get stuff from. Like, everybody kind of consumes wrestling in that way. And it's like, I don't think it's a real argument at this point.
Yeah. And they haven't understood the kind of like the evolution of the fan as well. And just the idea, I think at times where it's, you know, we've spoken about this before about like time, effort and money to go to see these things. You went to Coventry and got ill, for the love of God, to see like,
not too
Impact
good,
Wrestling. You know,
I apologize for my complexion.
It is that type of like, it's those types of things, you know, that people will do on here, and it is.
Well, it's like, to jump in, sorry, like as Steph says here, like, you know, she'll be on TikTok following like, you know, the stuff about like, you know, celebrity gossip and stuff like that. Like, it's about like what the kids are doing, who've been dropped at school, and like who's having an affair with who, and you know, so and so's got a new nanny and stuff. Like, meanwhile, you got New Japan like trying to shut down the autograph hunters at airports, and I understand why. But you know what I mean? Wrestling, as Steph makes the point here, has got to understand this stuff's the tip of the iceberg in most popular culture right now. Of course, reporting's going to happen. Of course, people are going to be interested in the background stuff. It's not just the wrestling thing.
Well, there are billions of dollars at stake. So why wouldn't it be reported? These are massive industries that employ like thousands of people, like at a high level. You know, it's kind of insane, the idea of kind of treating it with the disregard. But this is there is a point I'll come back to. I raised it a while ago, and I think with AEW is the issue of infrastructure of this, of a company that has grown like really quickly, bigger than we thought a lot of times, broken all manner of records in that, have produced just some episodes, some of the best wrestling television that's ever been produced. I would say that, because so much of it in our minds is never actually as good when you go back and revisit this stuff. If you're
but I would
interested
have
in
killed Kemny Omega when WWE was fucking shit for 20 years. Matty's not here, I can safely say it. I would have killed for a match like Kemny Omega versus MJF on TV. So I'm going to remember to give us things like that.
They do. They absolutely do. And I think the thing is there's a sense of dismay, because one of the central tenets that I think a lot of us as hardcore fans took is Tony Khan is one of us. So he kind of knows, therefore, what are the failings, what are the reasons, the things that when you're reading about the business, it's about what they're doing wrong as much as what people are doing right. And you kind of go, okay, you learn from those mistakes. And so much of it is kind of organizational. Like, in a sense, what WWE has managed to do is kind of, even creatively when it's been in the dumps, but they've always like fallen forward, because the infrastructure and the organization and stuff are there to keep them consistently hot enough so they keep on going and keep on growing. Here, what we're seeing is there's an organizational thing when it comes to stories. There's about how arenas are booked and what kind of arenas are booked at this stage, because it's very, very samey basketball arenas that are being heavily taped off, and that stuff doesn't make for good TV. It doesn't suggest a hot product. That's not really in place as well. Like, just in terms of like almost like an organization of the roster, and this requires like administrators, basically, not like ex-wrestlers, like people who are doing administrative jobs, and they haven't got those. WWE have those. A lot of the times, you know, they had a lunatic tearing up the fucking script in the background, but he's kind of gone. What we've seen is, even though the storytelling can be, you know, a lot, and you'll talk about Raw and SmackDown, can be somewhat lackluster at times, they are going in a general direction, and you know, that's the things that work for them. Sorry,
you've raised something there though. You just made me think, like, can I start the moaning early? I know it's only 2023. Do you not think the All In, like, shouldn't the tickets have gone on, not on sale, but like, should we have a pre-sale date? Should they have? To be honest, they probably could have got away with putting them on sale when everyone was excited at Wembley. Because, like, I know it's a complete side issue, and I apologize. You know, people who got sick of the videos last year was moaning about Wembley, but like, I know it's early to start. It's like talking Christmas. You know, steak, festive bakes starting to appear in Greg's JP. I had the Christmas putty the other day. I very much enjoyed it from my Tesco meal deal. You know, it's good when that's coming. Feels a bit wrong doing it in October. But
those turkey and trimmings things are all right. I don't mind.
Anything like that, bit of cranberry in there, bit of bacon. You can mix it up, bit of stuffing. You know, you always get a good butty out of it. Always happy. Don't care if it comes in October. I want to be sick of it by November. I want to look in the middle of December like I don't want to look at another festive bake in my life. And then next Christmas I'll be in the same fucking boat. But like that, as I lose my own analogy, like it feels definitely early to get into moaning about All In 2024 season. But like, I do think that chickens are going to come home to roost next year. I don't think it's necessarily going to be as one-to-one as, you didn't build it last year, so no one comes next year. I think all of these disparate elements we're talking about are going to come together as like maybe a wake-up call, like as to what that number is next year. And I think you could have counted that, you know, get your ducks in a row, let's go going now. You know, when the excitement was coming off the last one, you know, have a pre-sale or something like that, or at least announce a pre-sale date. WWE have announced a Germany show and a France show. Oh, they haven't announced the France show, but we know about the France show at this point. You know, they're obviously, they were just in the UK this weekend. That was the back April time. I saw Robert mention that in our Discord. Like, you know, WWE's going to start stacking the deck here. Come on, lads, get your ducks in a row. I want you to, you know, I want to be wrong. I want them to pass the 40,000 mark or whatever. My guess, that'll be my early guess at this point. 45,000, I reckon they'll do next year. I want them to do better though. You know, it's the organizational side of things that kind of plays into that.
It is, yeah, you're right. I mean, if we're going to go that far on it, fuck it, I'll say 50. I'll be somewhat more optimistic.
So
I was generally right last time.
This.
Incredibly early for this. Just going to go. This is the worst kind of like.
Why is Kenny Omega not in the main event, JP? What the fuck's going on? Why is he not in the main event?
We complain about his trios match right now for this. But really what they should have, and this is the thing if you are comparing the two companies and you're thinking about stuff that works, rather than go, okay, we're going to copy their style of storytelling, which is the weakest element of them. The thing that they've got in place is you already get a feeling they know what they're doing at Mania. They know what they're doing at the Rumble, certainly. They've got their big shows kind of lined up throughout the year. So you would hope with them that a conversation should be taking place where they go, what is headlining on these fucking shows? Who are the people we're focusing on? What are the big matches they're going to have at each of these shows? And make them kind of mean something. And it's like, yeah, they're really good at wrestling. We've established that as well. But the TV is absolutely crucial. And the TV kind of dictates what the heat is. It dictates how many tickets you sell for these pay-per-views as well. Because it's not like, I don't know how the Nassau Coliseum sales are going, but I'm not going to I don't think they're going to be going like absolute fucking wildfire. I'm not really, I would be like optimistic on that front. And they should have stuff like All In should be their WrestleMania. So they should be thinking at this stage, what is going to be our big fucking drawing card of a main event in there? And they should almost be thinking about that. And how do we get to that stage? And those are the things you worry about. Instead of looking at trying to micromanage for TV ratings that we're going to have this particular slot here, this kind of Mookie-nomics, it worked, the Mookie Ball way of booking. You can see the logic in it, but sometimes good television just needs to be good, logical, sensible television. And I don't think that's what we see. Like, again, the tonal inconsistencies and other things like that I've rabbited on about. And everything
people
else.
just generally vibes are down. Like, again, like, I don't want to be pigeonholed as one of those podcasts that are like, the world is falling apart and AEW is going to go out of business. They're not. Like, even when you'll make a WCW comparison like that, it's more product wise. I still think they're going to get a good TV deal next year. I think they're going to exist in 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily worried about that. It's the quality of what we've got. It's the interest level we've all got. Because you can feel it across the fandom. Like, the amounts of people I talked to who felt like All In was like their season finale with AEW. Like, they were just like, you know what, going to check out. It's like WWE. This used to happen every year, and it probably will again. Those winter months where it was like, we're far away from SummerSlam. Rumble and Mania are ages away, and interest just drops, doesn't it? AEW feel like they're kind of in that bit of a rut, and they need to find a way to figure it out and get us back to the promised land. I'd say, JP. But didn't expect to have a sidebar conversation there on the All In attendance and just the nature of how we consume media as a population these days. Did you have any other overarching thoughts on the AEW TV over the weekend? Collision or Rampage, which is actually a notable show this week in its own right.
I mean, I have to say, from Rampage, the only thing that I saw from it was Santana versus. I saw Santana and Ortiz, and I saw the MJF Kenny Omega segments that kind of building to the show on there. I think I zoned out when it was just like the Abaddon match. I was just like, whatever. Like, I just see Abaddon and I just get kind of like completely taken out. I mean, I like Santana and Ortiz, but you can't help but watch Rampage at times and just think there's, again, it should just be something different rather than it's just like a very samey but lesser version of Dynamite, really different theme music. And like at times, like even with Collision, I have to say again, there are bits of Collision that I really kind of
before we get
enjoyed.
There, let's stop on Rampage, because I to be honest, I really enjoyed Rampage this week.
Okay.
I skipped the women's 4-way because I watched it after Collision, so it was like, well, I know where we're going here. I've seen it. I'm sound. But I was glad I watched it, to be honest. Like, and that's the Sophie's choice of like, you put good stuff on Rampage and Collision, and then we either complain they're not doing anything, and then when they are doing something to get people to watch it again, we'll complain then too. But as fans, that's not our problem. So that is going to happen. But I thought Rampage was really good this week. I thought Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita in the main event. Again, to that argument, maybe should have been on Dynamite. Maybe Takeshita even in the match itself was, you know, worth checking out, not just for the frog and bucket reference that was snuck into commentary by Excalibur. Yeah, they said something like, "We're a long way from the frog and bucket here," which was a reference about 100 people got. But yeah, Tuesday Night Graps being referenced on AEW TV. Who knew? Because yeah, obviously Takeshi did it, didn't he? And Fletcher was a big part of the show. Enjoyed a lot, but it was a really good match. It was just it was mainly built around Kyle kind of snapping and attacking them all with chairs after the match, and that being enough to get Don Callis's love back or something like that. And now he's back in the heel stable. It was a bit of a convoluted way to get there, but Takeshi looked like a world beater again. It just felt like in the post match again, Callis is front and center, and Takeshi's just hanging around as like a wallflower in the background. That's been an issue of, you know, capitalizing on. It was a big part of, you know, the negative of Kenny Omega, because as they were going off air on Rampage, they were pushing the Collision main event, and it was like, Kenny Omega is going to be facing MJF for the title, and you're looking at Takeshi on screen going, hang on, he beat him, and Kenny Omega doesn't seem to care about that anymore. Like, we've missed a step here. Like, something should be happening, and, you know, that's going to be a continued complaint from me with Takeshi. I just want to see him be a pushed act. I don't want AEW to be different. You know, in WWE wouldn't happen because English isn't his first language, so he's never going to get pushed as a serious upper mid card main event type talent. I would argue in AEW you can do that, and you can do it anyway, but you can get away with it absolutely in AEW, and they seem to be shying away from it in favor of putting Callis in that prime position. So that was the negative there. But I thought Santana and Ortiz did a great job with their time. The problem was the limited time. Like Muckynomics was in play. I fucking always hate it with Rampage. I'm sure there's a spreadsheet somewhere that tells you if you skip the entrances, it holds more viewers. But like as a presentation point of view, I was like, I wanted all the build-up. I wanted Ortiz to come out mean mugging. I wanted Santana to come out. I wanted to soak in that moment before they fight. Instead, the show started and the ring looking at each other, and the bell rang. And Excalibur's giving us exposition about the fact that they've been standing there staring at each other for a couple of minutes. That's the negative. Positive was, though, I thought Ortiz and Santana were fucking great in the match. I was glad to see it because clearly there's a real life beef there as well. With their 10 minutes, the best they could. And to be honest, it's been the best feud in AEW in the last while. Something that did deserve more time somewhere else. And maybe the fact that they did do straight to the ring, and, you know, afterwards Ortiz is being teased as joining fucking Sanjay Dutt for some reason, was a big negative. But the positive was, like I say, two lads made the most of their limited time they got. And I think Santana especially makes a case for, he's not, don't get me wrong, he's not on the Takeshi, Swerve Strickland, Jay White list for me as far as guys in AEW that should be focused on. But as far as a lower level guy that should be focused on, it's absolutely him. So glad to see him go over. And yeah, I want to see more of him as this angry, you know, lower mid-carder / mid-carder maybe project for the next while or so.
Oh, that sounds, I mean, like it was, I thought, you know, again, it was the right decision. There's more upside in Santana and Ortiz, but I did also think while watching it, I was thinking of you and about like it's something I didn't really care about, and like I was just dispirited when I would have thought this should have been the main event. This is like the breakup of a tag team that debuted on your opening episode of your show. Like, you know, they were brought in to feel like kind of like a big deal as part of like this entire Chris Jericho stable, and their blow off should be a big deal with everything else going on there, and they were doing it kind of like in a believable way. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to say, like, I feel like I shouldn't have switched off after the women's match necessarily, and the video segments were very, very good. But
yeah,
I don't know, what do you do with Rampage now? Is The Rock just not kind of like, it feels like the fix is in, unless you did something quite radical to what the show is at this stage, that it just gets lost in the shuffle. And there's also not enough time because the news moves so quickly. It just becomes irrelevant the moment Collision is out.
Yeah,
you watch
like
Collision
I made a special effort to go back and watch it. Absolutely, to go back and watch it this week because I'm so into the Ortiz and Santana thing, and I just really like them both as wrestlers. But yeah, granted, in another week, you know, not allowed to do it as a media person. Apparently, we're all allowed to skip Raw and SmackDown every week, but gotta get that Rampage in. I did get my Rampage.
Do if you're Gareth.
I ate my veg. Yeah, Gareth's the completest among us, isn't he? But no, I do. If anyone skipped it, those two matches are worth watching. Collision, like as far as like highlights and that, like felt like a one match show for me. I enjoyed Samoa Joe going over Rhett Titus. That felt very retro ROH. So you know, I'm always gonna enjoy that. that didn't really have any huge takes really. Claudio, Tracy Williams felt like retro Jakara, never mind ROH. Although Claudio fucking smashed through him. I'm guessing that's happening. But I said it on the Monday update I put up for free for patrons that Claudio is maybe, if Brian is, and again I reserve the right to, as I will with Adam Cole, say it was all a work after all, and he's not as injured as they claimed he was. But it seems like Brian is genuinely injured, and it feels like, maybe Brian and Okada wasn't going to be until Wrestle Kingdom, but maybe if they had any plans intermediate with it, Claudio's getting those plans now, which I thought was, selling that on Collision was good. It's good. Yeah. If we are pivoting to him and it wasn't the original plan, I like that, because I thought Okada and Claudio had really good chemistry in the tag match last week. Do you have any thoughts on that, by the way, the Brian stuff? Like, it's an interesting story. So apparently he hurt his eye in the Andrade match on Collision.
Yes.
And he had a black eye, and they still let him go out on Dynamite, which has now resulted in a busted eye socket. Like, these doctors are work too, and what's going on? Not that I'm not the fucking safety police, it's their bodies, whatever, but felt a bit like a bit of an oversight, like, to let that happen if he's going to be out for the rest of the year.
This is the thing, though. These injuries are happening on a very regular basis for Brian, aren't they? And it does feel like we're at the point where any matches with him, they need to be special matches and saved and kept for those as much as anything else. And also Collision, that's the show that effectively he's the one who's supposed to be anchoring it. Like, it falls on, it kind of has always fallen on him,
doesn't it?
Which is the kind of issue here. Now, in terms of going in with Claudio as his kind of like replacement, as like the kind of workhorse, I like, from a work perspective, it's probably as good as you're going to be able to do. Like, realistically, it gives him something kind of properly substantial as well. Like him, I would say normally him chasing MJF, but frankly, there's enough people who are doing that at the moment. They all appear at the end of the main event as well, watching telly as all of this stuff is going on, in terms of the Kemny Omega match. But Claudio being put into that kind of mix, and him and Okada as well, like, it would certainly deliver from an in-ring perspective. And he feels like he'd be he'd be a real kind of shot in the arm if he was like the kind of top line. Just because I know you're not convinced by it, and never kind of have been. I've always just like, at least we're not going to die not knowing if you try and push Claudio as a kind of like a proper main event act. And maybe this is the stage when the top two members of the stable he's in are injured, that effectively you kind of have to go with him. And even though like kind of Moxley's coming back, like, it, if they're going to do that and they're going to put him in there as a top line commodity, with the Brian stuff, it kind of scares me. Just like the idea of we're seeing so many of these injuries, they're happening on a regular basis. The fact after the Andrade match, they were like, fucking hell, no, hold off. And instead, like, put him in there for what turned out to be ultimately a kind of pointless tag match involving Kazuchika Okada as well. At the end of all of this, when you should have just been thinking, no, shit, we've got to save him, but also as an act of goodwilling to New Japan, who clearly wanted to use that as a Tokyo Dome match, which would have drawn over there and would have done subs. Do you reckon he'll be back in time for it? It's the eye, mate. It scares me.
Yeah,
might have been somewhat sore X recently, but anything.
I've seen him wrestle with an eye patch, so like I never worry about Brian. And that's the other part. He gets in his own way, and that's why you do need to police him. But at the end of the day, he'll be. It's one of them. I'm not worried, because I don't worry about other people's like bodies and health, to be honest. Call me a dickhead, but I am worried we're going to miss out on the things we could get out of Brian, which is Wrestle Kingdom, which is whatever he's got planned for this retirement year over the next year or so. So you don't want to see that put in jeopardy either. But if I was a better man, I'd say we'd see him back. But yeah, did you have any other notes on Collision outside the stuff I mentioned?
Happy to see Roosh return. Not necessarily. Still, the House of Black stuff is kind of like slightly, I don't know. Again, it's leading to more trio stuff as opposed to like kind of Malachi Black in singles feuds and the rest of it. And I was very dismayed to see QT Marshall on the TV as well. That's something that just doesn't need to be happening on there. And I think this is the thing that perhaps when you say about it being a one-match show, looking back on it, and if you just look through it and you think of all the stuff that actually appeared on it, it really was like that. It really was just like a one-match show. And there's people still that they find time for, like a Ryan Nemeth, for example, shouldn't be on Collision. Like seriously, the TV time,
Really on BTE
save
these
it for
days.
stuff that's substantial. But
Do you follow BTE on YouTube? Like,
No.
it's weird. They've stopped uploading like full episodes, and now it's just like random ones. Like, it's you probably see, because I think I follow them on the GRAPPL account, which is always a laugh because I'll log in and I saw in the history this week. I was looking for something I'd watched, and I was going through. It was like the What Culture lads and like some F4W stuff and Post, and then I just saw Bluey, and I was like, I think JP's been on the GRAPPL account again today.
Yeah,
it was like a 3-hour episode. Or something.
There is. Yeah, that's
me.
I did it to keep the boy entertained. Like while we were in the car.
Unless I was high
Bluey.
watching it. But I enjoy
watch
it.
it. Do a lot worse. There's some cracking life lessons in there.
But yeah, I've just noticed from the subscriptions, they've stopped actually uploading like there's no full BTEs. I've seen it reported a little bit this month. There's been nothing. It's just the individual skits go up, like Colt Cabana gets lost at the airport, or fucking the Nemeth brothers go bowling, or whatever the fuck they've been doing on there. Yeah, a little bit strange that. So like, books can't be asked with that either, can you? All right, nice one, lads.
You can get rid of Brandon Cutler now, can't you? They're kind of
no excuse for him, is there?
No, there's no excuse for it as well. But that's.
You've got no history in not doing the job books. None at all. No, it doesn't. It's not a thing.
Yeah, where are they in all of this as well? That's the other thing.
The one contender to the tag titles.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about it as well. It's just like, what the fuck? I don't know. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I mean, MJF, Kenny Omega, just watch that match. That's the kind of big takeaway from Collision.
Yeah, the only other takeaway I had was obviously the MJF story continuum, where like you've again the belt stuff. You wouldn't if you just tuned in blind, you'd be like, why is MJF trying to steal his own belt back? He looks like such a jobber trying to do that in the opener. And again, Jay White gave too much away off Fox for me, but that's another matter. We can talk more at the build to that as we get closer to the pay-per-view. But yeah, unless there's anything else on AEW from you, JP, we have got a lot of other promotions to get to. Don't even know where to start. TNA, a load of Japan stuff. Vladimir. Do you want to talk Shida Ngannou beating Tyson Fury? As a completely uneducated wrestling fan, I say yes, but I don't see that will be whole chest.
It was hilarious. Very quickly.
Again, though, I had Joe sending me the screenshots of Vince and Undertaker with those stilted kind of like interviews with. It was brilliant because it was one of them where it was like, so Vince, what do you think you can learn from this? Or like, what a great event this is tonight. Like, and Vince was just like, oh yeah, it's a his fucking broken voice and his fucking cane that he's keeping himself walking. Just platitudes, literally said nothing. Just like, oh, what a great event. It's just great to be here. And then the interviewer was like, yeah, so cool. Anyway, what specifically about this event can you tell us about? And Vince just gave him more platitudes. Then he got pushed on Dana White, didn't he? And their rivalry, which, like I say, John Pollock wrote a great article on the Dana White versus Vince McMahon kind of underground feud, and it's been happening behind the scenes over the years. Dana White will always talk about Vince. He never says how, but he's like, Vince was trying to fuck me for years. So you would imagine Vince ringing fucking pay-per-view providers and all kinds trying to get a UFC taken off. And now they're all under one roof, and he's having to play friendly. It was such a fucking. I know we talked a little bit about it on the pre-show, but just to expand on it, what a weird scene seeing Vince McMahon as in your background there, trying to blend in with real people, and also Mike Tyson, and Ronaldo and Eminem and all of the other celebrities. It was fucking. He looked like he'd been let out for the day from the care home. Like it just. An Undertaker was his carer, standing over his shoulder at all times. Apart from when he was front row at the boxing, because Undertaker was back in the cheap seats, obviously. Not that big a star, ask LeBron James. What a fucking scene, though.
It was a wild scene. I think, like in the image behind me for the video viewers, like there is a point where it looks like Eminem is just turning around going, what the fucking people who are here? This is pretty, just absolutely wild. I mean, we're going to see this happen a lot in terms of events to Saudi Arabia and the like, and we're going to see other people like...
the whole stadium for it. Like,
yeah.
It's fucking ridiculous.
It is mad. I mean, in terms of where he stands, I mean, this is where, I mean, Vicky is a big boxing fan. So when we were watching this together, she was going, well, Fury's won. He's like boxed better between those kind of like some of the rounds in between. But it was close on a fight that shouldn't have even really gone If he was taking it seriously,
the
should have gone 2 rounds. I was going to say first 3 is an absolute certainty. I thought he'll knock him out.
We were in Coventry, like, and Steph had a few quid in a Sky Bet account, and it was on in the pub. And I was just like, I used a couple of your quid that I went on in Ghana. You never know. I'm like, some of the odds were ridiculous. It was like, you know, he'd have to get a knockdown in round like 2 or something like that, which didn't happen, but he did get one. I'm like, you know, win this round and that round. But you were talking like 100 to 1 and stuff, and it was like, you know what? I don't think it's that unlikely. Maybe again, I'm one, like as Will describes in the chat. I'm one. Like, I would, if I had to pick a side, I'd be MMA over boxing, because I did once upon a time, a long time ago, like UFC. But like, yeah, I did think they'd maybe slightly got it wrong. Like, is there anything that, like, again, like, I think he won, but I'm sure they'll do the rematch and they'll make a load of money off the rematch. And Liam was educating us in the Discord about how he's clearly not going to win because they've already got Tyson Fury fights lined up and they want to protect them. It's you know, I know it's an easy thing to say and it's an obvious thing to say, but it's more bent than wrestling is the boxing. But is there anything to answer Vince McMahon's question for him, JP, and in the wrestling world can learn from the fucking ridiculousness of it all, other than sell your soul to Saudi and you make your millions? But Vince has already learned that because it's WWE's home now, so we know that.
I was going to say, like, they were the first ones to do this. They were like they were early adapters to the take the Saudi money and run. Like, that's exactly what you do. Late. Yeah, UFC were kind of late to the party for this. Boxing has always been looking for it. I mean, there's a couple of, it was more funny than anything else. Like the Ngannou like the Tyson Fury on his ass as Ngannou standing over him as well. And it's not like Ngannou was just like completely unbeaten MMA fighter. He'd lost before. There are times when he would just like look quite cumbersome and other stuff like that, and people would like move around. If he fought John Jones, like you could imagine John Jones just like running around for the kind of like 5 rounds and everything else. But it was just funny because as soon as he knocked it down, he'd kind of won. It was like at that stage, he's credible. And if you want an idea, and this is what I thought about in terms of TKO, the reason why this fight happens, the Saudis are doing this, and they were going to be doing on the 23rd. This was going to be an easy tune-up fight for Fury before he fights Usyk, who looked fucking terrified when they showed the reaction of Tyson Fury hitting the floor, because he realizes the millions that are just disappearing, that could have potentially disappeared at that point in time. He's not even sat on the front row, by the way. The challenger for fucking Tyson Fury, who's headlining, not as famous as Vince McMahon at all. And he looked really fucking worried. But Ngannou got 8 million for this fight. He got 490,000 for his last UFC fight as a champion. Like, if you're thinking about what TKO and everything else in terms of contracts and everything else, and you know, this is going to be a thing to look at, is that they'll do that game of letting big stars leave because they're not going to be held to ransom for it. And it's the thing that they're not going to, that it's almost like it's a complete non-negotiable when it comes to the kind of salaries. So you wonder if they're going to play that same game with wrestling. Like, do I think that if AEW were offered a load of money to run a Qatar show, would they take the opportunity? Abso-fucking-lutely. Like, they would do. I think this is going to be a thing that is just, it's going to happen. It is happening now, and it's going to happen with more regularity. And we've seen it, dare I say it, with the Crown Jewel shows. And I know that, you know, there's one of those coming up. When is it? Is it next week? Is it Crown Jewel?
Yeah, we'll be previewing that, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Like Crown Jewel, we're going to have Matty on for that one as well. They've become properly part of canon. Like, they've meant something. Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul was a big fucking deal. So I think, like, it's become normalized very, very quickly and very, very easily. Much in the same way that I think a lot of fans, like, of the Premier League, they just zone out if people talk about Newcastle and Saudi and sports washing and the rest of it. It's like, I've heard this before. And they just kind of ignore it.
They beat you with attrition, don't they?
Yeah, they do beat you with attrition because they just carry on regardless. They don't give a shit. And they're just going to fucking steamroll through and go, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Just kill a few less journalists and you'll be fine, lads. But yeah, Crown Jewel is this weekend. I might as well mention it quickly while we're on it. I did watch For My Sins Raw and Smackdown this week. Thought the Creeds looked good in the debut on Raw and also looked nervous though. Looked a little bit as much as like there's something there with them, they looked a little bit off for me. But they're hitting that
Schrodinger's wrestlers, mate. They're both good and shit. Like,
Yeah.
I can't work out what they are. They're good and they're shit.
And the look is shit too, but like it kind of works for who they are. Like I can't nail what they're going to be. But they look good, hoisting Otis up for the Doomsday device and stuff like that. Raw was just a show. Smackdown was actually, again, starting to, with Roman around, has become a decent show again, mainly for the LA Knight stuff, because that's the big thing. You know, we'll give the full Crown Jewel preview on the weekend show, and, you know, obviously always tempered with the genuine criticism of those shows fucking, you know, even taking place in the first place. I wonder if Vince is just going to stay there and not come home. He'll just wait for WWE to come into town. Maybe that's why he flew in so early. But yeah, you know, that's the building. Cena, Solo Sikoa, said it on the update on Monday, JP. If you're expecting Cena Umaga 2007, one, you're not getting out of whatever John Cena is these days, because he always had 2 left feet, but I feel like he's forgotten how to wrestle in this combat run, and Solo Sikoa is not Umaga. Don't expect great things out of that one. But I do think Roman Reigns, LA Knight, the build on SmackDown was good again. Like having LA Knight interrupt Roman's big entrance, you know, it was just something you don't see, you know, with that Roman Reigns character. They gave him plenty of time to kind of roast Roman on the mic, and he ended the show beating him down. Said it before, he's not winning, but it feels very much like, you know, Revenge of the Taker, Austin Undertaker in like 97, when Austin was on the come up and they gave him that pay-per-view main event and he didn't win the title, but, you know, the real title one came later. Yeah, they seem to, that's one of the things, you know, for the negatives you can say about like Raw and SmackDown these days, and there's still plenty of them there. You know, the Roman Reigns backstage segments are not for me whatsoever. The in-ring style remains not for me. Raw's very repetitive. A lot of basically Cody and Jey Uso make the save every second segment pretty much on Raw. That's pretty much what they do over there. The things they are doing well is like, okay, you got a guy who's hot and it's an obvious thing. Let's put him in a pay-per-view main event. Let's go with LA Knight, at least for now. If we're not putting him over at Mania or Rumble, do it now instead. And they're not really putting a foot wrong with it. Like, he's got to deliver when it comes to the match, which is probably the biggest issue going over Crown Jewel the weekend when we do fully preview. But yeah, the TV itself the last week or so was solid enough, you know, and that's high praise for WWE after 20 years of the shite.
That's it. Like you've always said, that they're doing like a competently based product on there. And I know the rating, I know it was on FS1, so it was never going to do the kind of ratings it would normally do on Fox. Wasn't it the highest ever FS1 rating as well?
Second highest FS1, but up.
Second highest.
Up, definitely. Yeah. Over the 1 million points, which is a better demo than Dynamite or Collision on FS1. You know, when you're hot to a point, you're hot. We'll have to have that. We'll have that Hall of Fame conversation at some point, Matty, and with or without Matty, and talk whether Roman Reigns deserves it based on these numbers. But yeah, again, solid shows, but I don't really have much more to say outside of that. Where do you want to go next, JP? What else we talking today?
I kind of want to talk about you. I want to hear about your trip to Coventry, mate.
Got food poisoning in the end. That's kind of the story, really, of Coventry. Obviously, I think that the biggest thing to talk about with TNA and running commentary is it's the Leon Slater news, which was it was worth the trip for me and Steph to be there, because she had the phone out, was making a video of Leon Slater signing with TNA, and I had my phone out taking photos of it, and I'd literally written the tweet, Leon Slater signs for TNA, before Scott D'Amore had even made it to the ring. Get in there, JP. Got the engagements. Got the news out there.
You did.
So our man Neil and Post Wrestling for using our footage on that, but that made it worth it. Outside of that, you know, last time I was in Coventry was for the Coventry Sky Dome, going to the International Showdown show. Hasn't changed much, mate, since back then. Time before that, one of the worst days of my life. I think I've mentioned it on a pre-show before. I mentioned it when we talked FWA, going to British Uprising 3. Got the fucking National Express from Liverpool all the way to Coventry to go and watch that show. And we got stuck in traffic on the way, and we got to Coventry at about 10:30 at night. Main event was pretty much already over at that point. And then we basically had to sit around in Coventry because we were getting the 4 a.m. coach back home because we were cheapskates and we didn't want to pay for a hotel. So got to spend 4 hours in Coventry, mate. So it was better than that, this trip. But still, it hasn't necessarily gone up on my estimation either. There's no Coventry-based listeners, Midlands-based listeners. What did I miss out on? Where should I go? It wasn't for me.
There's some good Irish pubs there, I can say from my experience, but they're nowhere near like the centre of town. Over in a place called like Earlston, on like the kind of the other side as well. What was the venue like? Because it looked like, I have to say,
you know what, the The only reason this is worth talking about, and it's, I'm not going to run through the fucking results of a TNA house show, because that's what it was, or Impact house show. It's still Impact technically right now, but it was kind of eye-opening, to be honest, JP, because it was like, we had that conversation last week about whether going back to the TNA name was a good idea, a bad idea, whether it's really something that's got legs. I can tell you from being there, like, it felt like going to, bearing in mind, last time I went to a big Impact / TNA show, it was at Manchester Arena, and Hulk Hogan and Sting were beating up the Aces and Eights. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different world from back then. Fucking Arena and the HMV Empire, which is like very much a Brit Res venue. Reminded me of the Manchester Ritz, or maybe not quite the ballroom, but that type of adult like nightclub / gig venue that also you can pile a load of chairs in. Like, we got there a little bit like on the late side. Steph had press. I technically did too. I'm gonna put my hat on that. I didn't really. I wasn't. I was a guest of the press for this one, JP. But like,
oh mate, you delivered though with that Leon Slater news. Don't do yourself.
There you go. I did the work for him. Impact. If you want to give me some tickets next time, let me know. But like, we walked in, so we were like the last to get there because we got into Coventry a bit late, and we got in some bad food that has clearly made me quite sick. And then we walked in the venue, and the first match had already started, and it was just literally packed. And we were like, "Oh, where can we sit?" And the guy was like, "Oh, you've got press, so you can sit front row if you want, but I don't think there's any seats." And there was like, there might be 2 seats if you go around this corner into the corner. Yeah, you might find 2 seats there, and that was it. We ended up standing for the pretty much show, because it really was standing room only. And I'm not saying it was the biggest venue in the world, like say nightclub venue, 1,000 and so people, something like that, but like packed, every seat filled, everyone there. Clearly, like, you forget how much of a foothold TNA had in this country. Like, TNA was AEW before AEW, especially over here. Don't think Americans understand how mad we went for it at a point when it was on Challenge. We all loved AJ and Samoa Joe, and they were doing the arena shows over here. Those fans still exist, and that's what it felt like. I was in a room of, yes, you're not talking fucking 10,000 people, but you're talking, I don't know what the exact number was. I'll have to find out, but more than 1,000 or so, all packed in. All in the fucking old school TNA merch, all fucking endlessly chanting TNA. Like, that chant, and you heard it about the shows over the weekend. The Turning Point show in Newcastle apparently is going to be a pay-per-view on Impact Plus this weekend. Like, that was the big takeaway. Like, for no other reason, even if you think it's a bad business call or it's bad branding or whatever your argument is, if it's just something to reward the hardcores who fucking love this company, I love, as Ewan says in the chat there, chanting TNA, I love, this company and what it was, it's the right move. I walked away going, that's the right call. It should be called TNA again. It should, lean into that history. If they're not going to grow, well, you might as well fucking encourage your hardcores to be passionate about it. And people felt passionate about it in a way that I don't think they would have if it was Impact Wrestling. I felt like the essence of, Scott D'Amore's coming out there, and people like Frankie Kazarian and Chris Sabin, and not on my show, but Alex Shelley, those types of guys are being featured, pure, dyed-in-the-wool TNA, legends, as it were, from like the old X Division days and from the company. Like, you can see the affinity people have for them. And it was like, yeah, you know what? There's, even if it's not going to operate on this small level, there's absolutely something there.
Because I think all of these shows have done, haven't they, like you say, done really good attendances. You see them coming over. The thing that they don't have in this country anymore is that TV presence they had. And the reason why Challenge TV was important for those people who weren't aware is because basically it was on free cable. So like, it wasn't like a subscription channel. Like, you needed to have like satellite or cable, but it comes with it for free. And to be honest, if you're looking for old episodes of Bullseye, and I always am, like, that's the kind of stuff you'd be on, just game shows and the rest of it. But it has like a presence and penetration, even to the point where they did Wrestle Talk TV as a result of kind of Impact doing such good numbers for them as well. They'll be over here a lot more, I'd imagine.
They will. They basically said that will be here sooner rather than later. They should be, because that show is going to look fucking great on Impact Plus. The one from Newcastle, because it's going to be if there's anything like Coventry, it's going to be a rabid fan. Ewan says here, you got people like Josh Alexander, Trey Miguel, who were TNA fans back in the day. Like, that video came out this week, didn't it? Where it showed the TNA announcement being made and the wrestlers in the back are chanting for it. But like, that was where I got again, match wise, there's not really anything to talk about, but that's where there was definitely positivity, because like you had that old school TNA guards, but then the old school, including Eric Young as well, putting over your Josh Alexanders of the world. Like there was a promo at the end where Frankie Kazarian and Josh Alexander put over Subculture massively. They were great. The main event was probably the only match I'd be worth spending much air on, but like it was a 3-way tag match, Eric Young, Josh Alexander against Saban and Kazarian, because Alex Shelley was probably massaging somebody back in America, against Subculture, and Subculture incredible. Like felt like if you're going to build another presence over here, like they are. Go with them. It felt like people were proud that like this Brit Res tag team / NXT UK tag team were being represented in Impact, and they were put over strongly as like the future of Impact. Apparently the Glasgow show is showing on TV this week as well. So there you go, that's a positive. But it just felt like you could tell who was stars and who wasn't. Trinity came across as a gigantic star for me when she came out. You kind of tell by the strength of the loudness of the reaction, but 2, people kind of getting the phones out and making videos, like for like when to Jerry Lynn and Ricky Shane Page's point, you had like she felt gigantic. Moose, for his faults, felt like a big star on the show for me. Like it felt like, okay, this is somebody, and the fans clearly see him as, despite having never really main evented a big promotion, if you don't count Impact, he felt like a main event wrestler on the show, and that was positive I give. Obviously, I'm always going to be the Grado for the Observer Hall of Fame voter, so I am going to say that Grado got a massive response when he came out. But that was the most encouraging thing. It was like the homegrown, newer era Impact TNA stars were massively over, and you could tell the fans there had been waiting 7-8 years to cheer them on a TNA / Impact branded product. And the other big grateful for what they did on this tour was signing Leon Slater. Like I say, being there live for that and doing it in the Midlands was smart as well. Didn't love him losing to Frankie Kazarian and not getting to do his Swanton 450, but I think we'll see that on Impact and on the pay-per-view special at the weekend. But like, yeah, it felt like a good moment, and it felt like a step in the right direction. As we said on the weekend show, right move for TNA, right move for Leon Slater. Leon Slater is not someone who should be buried on Rampage right now, or somebody that should be in the AEW ecosystem too early, or even the WWE ecosystem, or whatever else. TNA at the level it is, trying to do something fresh in 2024. Leon Slater can be the at the forefront of that, with this new X division and stuff like that. I know they had Harley Hudson win the gut check the second night, and she's from reports you hear she's solid enough, got a bit of charisma from the couple of times I've seen her live around Liverpool and the Northwest. But Leon Slater's like a genuine hot prospect, and puts again TNA in the front page of stuff. We're signing somebody who everyone has high expectation for. Just great for everyone.
It really is, isn't it? And I think that's the thing about them coming over as well, is that there are enough of those talents, UK-based talents, that they can use on some of these shows to kind of like really mean something. And there is momentum. We've spoken more about them over the last 3 weeks than we have done, like outside of like when we end up reviewing the kind of like the pay-per-views. I'll go through the results on TV on the weekend show, but like they've got some momentum. And I think the thing about this is if they're able to take good TV in front of hot crowds, then it makes sense to base themselves over here.
Yeah, come over more
to a certain extent, and do this more. And they're going to see this, and if they can put this kind of production into it as well at the same time, then like because I thought about, I was like, oh, I wonder if I could go, and then I looked and I saw it was sold out, and I was like, bloody hell! Like, okay, right, that's a non-starter then. And then in the end, I'm going to Arsenal, Sheffield United instead, so I wouldn't have been able to go. But Sheffield United are fucking terrible. They're a shocking side.
I'm gutted, mate. I Captain Martinelli in the FPL this week, thinking no one knew we were going to win about 3 or 4-0. Did fuck all for me, mate. Gutted. Let down. No, and Gabriel not starting either. What's that about? Come on, giving him a rest.
I know who got a rest there or missed out on that one.
Gabriel.
Oh, he was always going to do that. I think that was I got ballsed over by FPL stuff. I'm glad we didn't talk about it in any extensive detail. It's just it was a bad week for that. But a good week for TNA, good couple of weeks for TNA, and encouraging signs, I suppose, also from the ticket sales, and just like they need wrestlers like Leon Slater as well, particularly because of that kind of X Division style moveset, and feeling like they're getting onto people early doors. But he doesn't have to go away and do like extended tours and not be used or wrestle in just 2 to 3 minute long matches. He can effectively just be based in the UK. I mean, he's uprising the next big Rev Pro show. He's challenging for the cruiserweight title on there. Like, that's the kind of stuff you go, oh, okay. Like, this is, you know, he is definitely like, he's a very raw prospect, but he's a hot prospect. And seeing them do that, remember, like, there were times when, for example, like they used Ospreay, and then they because he was worked somewhere else, so they just went, all right, we're just going to give you a 6-minute match and let you lose, and they just didn't even bother with it, and they kind of let this stuff go because of their own kind of arrogance. They're not in that position, and it's what I've said about generally like a Scott D'Amore run TNA at this stage. It feels like there's a level of kind of competency, and it's going to be slow growth. It's not going to be like they're doing sold out Wembley Arena and stuff like that, but I would expect at least 2 to 3 big shows they end up doing. I wouldn't be surprised if they did Bound for Glory over here if they could build it.
It feels like the right lane. You know, we said we were complimentary when they dropped the TNA name, and we're like, we know our place in the world. We're Impact Wrestling, and that's ran its course. You know, then there was no growth coming, and whether there's growth coming here or not is to be seen. But it feels like the right lane. You know, like I say, Scott D'Amore is a steady set of hands who's leaning into the history of it, but also got an eye on the future. Yeah, I walked away positive out of TNA. And yeah, I had a good night. It was fine. Nothing notable match wise. Fun to see a few of the wrestlers live. Good to see like a Deonna Purrazzo live who I'd never seen before. Rich Swann again, people like that. But outside of that, yeah, it was just a fun night out really. And yeah, paying for it now. But you know, we got to see the fight afterwards and have as nice a time in Coventry as you have. We were in Birmingham the day after. Went to Bullring. Had a had a better meal that day, and yeah, did a good little trip. Glad we went. But yeah, on that note, we should probably move on from TNA. We're next, JP. I think we've both seen the Vladimir documentary. Snuck it onto the network this week, didn't he? Like, that was like, you know, one that, and I hadn't realized really until I watched it how long ago it was we were having the conversation about the Vladimir documentary. But like, wasn't it supposed to originally be an A&E documentary, and then it just didn't air, and then we never heard anything about it again, and then it was just dropped dead, and then all of a sudden, like I say, quietly, it's not even on the front page of the network, it's just on the network now. And it's a lot of it's like talking about it like it's present day, but it's talking about like 2021. So it shows you how long they've kind of had it sat there. I don't know, maybe the fact that it was talking so much about the pandemic and stuff like that was a reason they held off on it. I don't know. Odd decision though for an enjoyable documentary.
I didn't know whether or not there was too much Jeff Jarrett on there. And they just thought,
maybe.
Oh no, we're going to delay
it. First voice
you
hear, isn't he?
He is. He really is the first voice you hear for this as well. I think Claudio's on it as well, isn't he? At the same time, but it's a strange one because it's generally a very nice documentary. Like, you really feel for him in terms of like his relationship with his mum. I mean, I came into this, like you say, it snuck into it. It didn't answer the question of maybe I missed this. How did he, like, the actual logistics of him getting front row for all of these events is still never quite explained. Am I wrong on that? Did I miss something massive?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just that he lives in New York and he goes to MSG at Cube. I'm sure the fact that he was like around the wrestlers and stuff in hotel bars and stuff like that, like, they don't say it, but I'm sure they probably sorted them out every now and then. Like, it was a thing though, like literally as a kid, like we would. And everyone was saying it's the talking heads on. If you don't know who we're talking, it's Vladimir. You know, he had like the big glasses, didn't he? Like the big like Hans Moleman glasses. He's skinny. Always had tank tops on. He'd be leaning over the barrier of front row. Pretty
jacked though. Always in good
at every
shape.
WWF show you'd see. Like, and as kids, we'd just be like, this bloke's got the best life. Like, I think Drew McIntyre said it. He's got the best fucking life in the world. Like, he said he's there with Hulk Hogan. He was there in '96 when, you know, as we talked about in the Shawn podcast, when Sid beat Shawn and he's fist bumping him and hugging him. That's one of my biggest memories of that match. He was just fucking everywhere. And like, wouldn't go as far as some people in the documentary, but we were like, he must have won the lottery, or he must be a millionaire, or he must, like, I don't know, just fucking really fucking love wrestling. Like, I feel like I can't remember when it was, but it might have been an ROH show at some point. I've seen him in person, and I should have got a photo with him because, like, that's a wrestling legend. You know what I mean? Like, and it's nice that they treat him as such in this documentary as well. Like, but like, we had those same theories of like, who the fuck is this bloke and why is he always there? The thing is, like, the answer to it, like you say, we don't really fully get it, and there isn't really like. I think maybe part of the reason the documentary didn't get released, and I loved it, don't get me wrong, I'll get into the reasons why, but there's not a lot of substance to it. It's like, oh, there's this super fan, he really loved the WWF, and they kind of repeat that a few times, and then we get to the stuff about his mum, which is genuinely like, touching and stuff, completely quite separate to what you thought the documentary would be about, and it gets into the COVID times and his mum dying and things like that, which is maybe not the lane you would have expected this to take. If anything, becomes a documentary about COVID and our lives during that period more than it does anything else. So maybe that's part of the reason, because it's quite, he's not really much of a talker, is he? Like, he loves the WWF, and that's it really. And it doesn't really, you don't really get much more out of him, do you? You don't get much more substance out of it, but it was still heartwarming at the same time, and a watch I'd recommend to people.
He's ultimately, like I say, he comes across as a very nice man, generally like very likable. Like he's not complex in any way, shape, or form. He just loves he loves WWE/WWF. He just loves it, fucking loves it. Can't get enough of it and everything else. And it's kind of nice when he gets his super fan title and everything else, because he kind of really appreciates it. And there's no cynicism about him as well. No. And it's a very different type of documentary from what you see. Like sometimes these things can be rather bombastic at times, but it's actually it's generally quite nice. I don't want to say it's quite slight, because that's probably doing like a real disservice.
No, it is.
It's not.
It's 45 minutes as well, isn't it?
Yeah. It is like, I mean, I even found, I was like, okay, like you say before, there's a lot of repetition of he's the biggest fan of WWF, and then you're repeating that in so many ways, and then they'll speak to another wrestler who says, I'd see them in these shows and I'd just be wondering who this guy was, as we all were. Did
you not think, like, I reckon Shawn Michaels really remembered them, X-Pac talks about him fondly. There's loads of wrestlers like that. Jeff Jarrett comes across quite genuine. Hogan, no way he knew who he was. He's just like, he was a great fan, he loved the WWF. It's like, right, cool. Any particular memories, Terry? Yeah, what a great fan. He loved the WWF. Oh, I was like, okay, nice one, mate.
Half-arsing as usual, old Terry. The Roddy Piper moment is great, where he gets like called onto the apron saying, you're going to pick my tag partner for the next time they're wrestling at the Garden. And he picks Hulk Hogan, and the place goes batshit. And then he turns around to the crowd and like kind of gives them the G up as well. And it's really good to see. And it does go down. Like I would say, like the stuff when it mentions about his mum, like that's the bit where there's kind of like substance to it as well, because clearly, like it mentions the story about him. He was like, he's originally from Haiti, and his mum moves to New York and gets then him and his 5 other siblings. And he's
everyone thinking he's Russian.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone just goes, he's Russian. Goes, no, he's from Haiti, as well. And like, brings him over. He and mentions about that. And it's just sort of tragic, like the idea, like 92, and how much he loves her. And there's points when he was feeling suicidal, and he talks about, and I didn't expect it to go down that path. Like I really, you kind of don't. It's not that you don't see it. You figure something's happened, but I think it's just the COVID element probably puts, like you say, just dates it in such a way that you can't build this up as a big thing, partly because it feels like that was a while ago now.
Yeah.
Even if we are having COVID inquiries and stuff in this country going on at the moment.
There's very little media on COVID, isn't it? It's like we all decide as a society, we don't want to see films about it. We don't want TV series to acknowledge that it happened. Like even TV series that were ongoing, I know there's exceptions, but there's ones where it's just like, at no point did it ever get disrupted by COVID. The lives of the characters in this show. Like we'll just decide we don't want to hear about it, to be honest, because it's hard. It's hard to hear about, isn't it? Especially a story like his.
Exactly. But if you're wanting to watch something that's like, what is it, 37 minutes? Like you say, like it's stuff.
Close to 45. I think.
Oh yeah, it comes to 45 in the end. It's a very easy watch, and it is. You're intrigued because this guy, like we say, when we were watching, like if you're part of that Silver Vision era or Coliseum home video era of watching pay-per-views, he was at not just New York shows, everything. I remember seeing him at ECW as well and stuff like that. And it's good that it brings up about the kind of super fans as well, because ECW kind of popularized those with, Straw Hat Guy and Sign Guy, and
I like that they got referenced.
Yeah, because Sam Roberts, this is when he's at his best, actually, like talking about this kind of stuff, and he is kind of all right. I think these kind of stories, I don't know what else you could do them on. I'm glad they made it. I mean, in some ways, it would have been nice if they had made a bigger fuss about it for him, because I think that would have been like the really nice thing. But yeah,
he seems made up. He's been like doing like
Yeah.
Mike Johnson's been like his like public voice type of thing, and he's been sharing.
He appears in
like,
a picture, doesn't he? Like,
yeah, he goes back with a lot of like those New York fans, but like he puts in there that like he put on Peter Insider this week. I think that like he's not actually very well at the minute, so hopefully he's all right. But he basically made up with all the attention from it. Loves the people stopping him for photos and stuff like that. Like that's it's like if I ever see him in a show again, 100% getting a picture of him. I'd be sending my cousins who don't watch wrestling anymore. I'd send the photo to them and be like, "Remember that guy?" And I bet they go, "Yeah, of course we do." But it's just it's nice that it exists. It really is, and like you say, they paid some homage to your Hack guys and your Death No More guy and all of the Fake No More guys. Sorry, and all
that's
your other
Faith No More guy,
or
Rob Zombie guy as he calls him. And I was like,
yeah,
he
goes
Faith No More guy to me.
Fortunately, Brock Lesnar guy and Frank the Clown got some love as well, but you can't have everything. But genuinely a nice little piece sat there on the network. I had some trouble watching it. Is the only thing. Fucking network sucks. Is it just on Google TV that like it buffers every 10 seconds, or is it just me? I have a fucking nightmare. With that thing.
Watched it on my phone in a car this morning as Charlie was just waking up. So I was watching it basically with him while Vicky was out on a dog walk. So I was like bouncing him up and down watching it, and so he watched it. He thought Vlad was all right. So I think, okay, if he's all right by GRAPPL Charlie, then he'll do for me.
Well, yeah, on that note, moving on from there. Speaking of streaming services, actually, apparently New Japan, did you see New Japan World's got a rebrand, reprice coming up? Apparently, if you're in November, I think you've got it. If anyone's thinking of signing up, got to sign up before the 6th. Otherwise, it's shutting down for a few days while they move over to the new service and the new price. Let's hope they improve that video player and also have like some kind of service where you're not just getting, if you join on the 25th, you get charged then and then again on the 1st, like Patreon used to have. Let's hope they're improving that.
If it could be as good as Wrestle Universe, which is actually like a really good service when I've used that before. If it could be as good as that at the very, very least, because the sign-ups to it as well, say they're not user-friendly is the fucking is an understatement. But yes,
speaking of that, Japan, JP, you've been all over Japan. You've been, in the words of our friends at Voices of Wrestling, bouncing around Japan this week.
Bouncing around Japan.
Stuff I've seen out the way. What have you been watching this week, JP?
I feel like I mean, there's a bit of new. I feel like I have to mention like Fighting Spirit Unleashed, but I have to confess I didn't watch all of it. I don't know if you did, because I saw
what the last 2 matches were and went no.
Yeah, do you know what I did? I had it on today as like coming back in, making dinner and everything else, like like after we'd done the Halloween rounds and everything else, and it just part of it is the production level. It feels like they don't even care about it, because it just feels like watching, like, I don't know, like an Impact Multiverse of Madness show that involves New Japan. So it feels very, very kind of like low rent, or like the combined shows with Ring of Honor, where they just be like a couple of the big stars of New Japan as much as anything else. And I think it really annoys me, because given the talent that they've got access to, given the fact that there is, again, we talk about like, in TNA knowing what they're kind of doing at this point in time, there is the potential for a very slightly different version of New Japan Strong, kind of building a good women's division using some Stardom stars there, as they have with Julia. They've got these good access to these good wrestlers, like Tom Lawler and whoever, kind of thrown into the mix. And then you can put in like a kind of a New Japan title being defended in the main event. You think, okay, this should all be really cool. But I just found myself like, it just glazes over me, because it just feels like I'm just really watching just a house show that's being taped for some content for New Japan World. And it's not particularly exciting. They can't even sell out Sam's Town, which even Ring of Honor in their kind of like weaker moments was able to kind of do, which says a lot to me as well. We spoke about social media use earlier on. Like, someone needs to speak to TVSA and go, like, can we use GIFs, please? Because this is the thing. Like, a lot of New Japan these days, like, again, it's the way people consume media. It's not solely based on this. You need to use your social media platforms to kind of share what is some of the cool stuff from the shows, rather than shutting it down straight away, which then kills an interest into it. But you know, watching this on here, the last match I saw in here was Eddie Kingston versus Hanare. He's fine. Like, I know Hanare had that great match with Shingo earlier on. We've seen Eddie Kingston have great matches. Like, I mean, even in some ways, I feel if we go 3.5, it's almost too generous. And I think that's the thing. It's like a very 3-star show, and it should be better than what it is. You've got Mystico on here. You've got Julia on here. Like I say, you've got Eddie Kingston on here. Like, I saw those top 2 matches. Like, you've got Shingo on here winning a title, which should be exciting, but it's against Tama Tonga and it's nearly half an hour long. I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that. And like, honestly, it needs to be provably like in the 4.5-star range before I go, all right, I'll watch it, because I feel like I should be watching it. And that's how I've like, this should be a show that we should be watching for the podcast, but we don't have to. It's not really, even if there's title changes.
You can do your life and not realize it's on. That's the thing, isn't it? That's Impact in general. We talk AEW being ice cold, like New Japan. Like, you know, New Japan main is ice cold. Never mind New Japan in the USA bulk TV tapings. Like, if you ask the average fan, did they know this was on? Probably didn't.
In some ways, New Japan in Japan not being as hot, there's this, you can tell they're going through, there's a transitional phase of people of your Naitos are getting older and not long for the like kind of wrestling in the kind of main events, and we hope to God this is the end of this fucking interminable LIJ storyline, and like with him and Sonada as well. I'm hoping people do what they did for fucking Triple H and Chris Jericho and just leave after like a fucking banging Okada Danielson / Claudio match that's on before, and they just go, yeah, I don't need to see this. We just like they start leaving like they did at that WrestleMania as well. Certainly don't need to see a 20-minute time limit draw between just 5 guys and LIJ team involving what I'm assumed is a t-shirted Tetsuya Naito there as well. So yeah, it doesn't mean anything. That's where we come to Gabriel Kidd versus Tom Lawler. I'd like to see that in Rev Pro, because I feel like it would mean more than kind of what it does here. And they don't even use like Tom Lawler that well. And that's a guy who almost a lot of these shows, that should have been like their guy. Like, they've done such a good job with him, and he's just never really used at the kind of substantial level. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, don't worry about it. I mean, the notable thing is they've got their new commentator, and he was on this show, Walker Stewart. He sounded fine. Like, he didn't sound like particularly massively distinctive, but he sounded like a perfectly good professional wrestling commentator.
Like Ian Riccaboni.
We need to, yeah, exactly. And do you know what? That's probably what they need at the moment. And she didn't have necessarily too many defenders, I've always found, but Vader Scott, I don't mind as a commentator. This is the role where I find that she's very much at her least offensive. So, like, she is kind of fine as much as anything. But yeah, other than that, it's a fucking show that exists. And there's, I would have to say, and moving on from there, I don't know if you've got anything to add about Fighting Spirit Unleashed. It's probably so unmemorable. I'll be shocked if that was the case.
I'll watch it in a block on the TV, mate, over the next 6 months. Can't wait. Like MLW.
I did watch some Noah. I suppose this is the stuff that did you watch any Noah at all? Any of this demolition stage?
No, but a couple of the matches you're going to mention in a minute, I have seen. But go on, do that one first.
We'll do this one first, just to kind of get it out of the way. I mean, it was in front of a kind of like a dead crowd. The notable thing from it is the reign of terror of Jake Lee as GHC heavyweight champion is over, as Keno won, which is what frankly, it didn't look like a great fucking crowd, I have to say. Like what, looking at it, it was a better match for Jake Lee. It was better partly because of Keno, because he has that energy and that groundswell of support from Noah fans. So it had his usual kind of stiff strikes and the rest of it, and he made him tap out at the end. But it's like, okay, fine, stick it on Keno. More kind of notable, really, from a UK perspective, we had Jack Morris become a double champion in Noah. You think of how far he's come from a guy who's like, we've never heard of him, and he's in the N1 victory, like all of a sudden, and he's going over to Noah on the reg. Well, he's won the national champion, and while he isn't what I say like a world beater in the ring, he's perfectly fine. He's perfectly decent, like, and he's got a good look for him, and he's a fresh face, and not many people know him, and he's their kind of guy, and it just, you know, it's one of these like, and Hio de Dr. Wagner Jr. also has had a really good run there. Like there's a couple of matches I've seen him when he's been defending this national championship. He's been very good. But Jack Morris is the tag champions and the national champion at this stage. And at some point we'll be getting a heavyweight championship like match there. And I'm genuinely surprised by this. Like I kind of look at this and I think like, fucking hell. Like this is talk about kind of like betting on yourself and whatnot. And he's really made a go of it there. And he clearly, you know, he's very much like, how would he be in a sports entertainment-y type company? I wouldn't have a clue. So I couldn't tell you what he's like on promos or as like, you know, being a kind of a character. But in terms of having a look, wrestling in a kind of competent way and the crowd liking him, yeah, in the main, he's managed to achieve that. And I have to say, like, you know, this match is a good solid, like 3.5 stars. Keno Jake Lee, I'd probably say like 3.75. Favorite match on there was the fact it was Katsuhiko Nakajima's last match in Noah. He teamed with Go Shiozaki as they lost to Naomichi Marufuji and Takeshi Segura, which is more notable because they're 4 old lads, but they were just, some of the chops sounded like fucking bullets. I don't know whether it was the acoustics or whatever, but it sounded absolutely horrific, like some of the ways they were laying into each other as well.
How did they treat Nakajima leaving? Like, you know,
they gave him
graduation stuff.
Bittersweet. I mean, he took the fall in the end to Segura. He was left to say goodbye to the ring, like kind of nodding off to the side, and then he posed on the top of the ramp with Go Shiozaki there as well. But I suppose in many ways, like, I mean, he can always go back there. He's not left on bad terms.
I was going to say, isn't the crossover between All Japan and Noah anyway?
Yeah, exactly. I expect him to do a bit of freelancing. I mean, if you're going to, the simple way of saying it is, if you're going to put him in a New Japan, which would be like the kind of, I suppose, the freshest place he could go. Because you've got to think as well, he can't go under this. If he goes under the Cyber Fight banner, you might as well just have him in Noah. So you can't have him in DDT. Dragon Gate is its own entity in its own world. So I don't know how he would even fit into that. All Japan crosses over with everywhere, to be honest with you. And, you know, like we're going to speak about, the idea of him and Kento Miyahara like having another match, because I fucking loved that match that they had recently. It'll be in my top 10 of the year. You know, there is always those kind of crossovers there as well. New Japan is the kind of one place where he's not had that kind of extended run, other than he did that G1 and they had the massive fucking pull apart in terms of the match with what do you call it? The pull apart with Katsuyori Shibata when they were headbutting each other. Not a wise thing to do. But as you've brought up on the screen here, he's called a shot for the All Japan Triple Crown heavyweight title
with his bouquet of flowers, which I very much enjoyed.
Yeah.
I did watch this just mainly for the post match. I did watch the main event match as well with Yuma Aoyagi against Yuma Aoyagi versus Kento Miyahara. Like, Nakajima coming out with the flowers in like the disco suit with the big collar was quite cool. But he got a good reaction for it because fans know obviously what it means for to do another one with those two. But yeah, you're right. As he also did the presser where he called for his shot with the All Japan Triple Crown title. That's what I was going to ask you. Is that where we are? It's going to be like not that All Japan are in position to sign anyone to a big long term deal. Nice little fun thing for him to do with a familiar opponent for a while. Do you think this is the landing spot, or is this just a stop off on the way?
I suppose the part of the problem is it's always like I've got this thing in my head about him appearing at Wrestle Kingdom because that would be the place to make the most impact if he was going to go into New Japan. The problem is that's obviously coming up right at the start of January. If this was an event going on in April, you'd think, well, he'd be freelancing it a bit. And he'd go wherever, and he'd work like US indies, or he might work the odd date in the UK, and he might see his value as being this kind of
up on Rampage.
Well, do you know what? Like a Minoru Suzuki figure who can go around, wrestle their type of match, has enough of a name to a hardcore base that they'll do well, and they'll sell lots of merch, and various things like that. And yeah, him going into All Japan as well. And again, this is, spoke about CMLL last week. This is something that our friend Alan Frail had been mentioning about, like, kind of All Japan as well. And I've seen a couple of the Yuma Aoyagi matches. It's one of its better cycles of what we've seen of it, where they're sticking with the people who have kind of got them there and stick around, rather than the really old lads, or bringing in someone from New Japan like a Yuji Nagata and putting the title on them for 6 months. It feels like, well, Yuma Aoyagi has kind of needed this push for a long time, so they're kind of going with it. And I think there is some interest and some juice in there. I mean, I'm fascinated to know, you saw the match as well. What did you make of it?
Solid, hard-hitting All Japan main event. Like, I don't really have a lot to say on it. I've probably got like 3.75 to 4 stars, which is the Benno special. Enjoyed the apron bump. Yeah, it felt like a big time main event. It is kind of what you can say about it. I'm going in there watching it without the full history of it, or the kind of understanding that Yuma Aoyagi always loses to Kento Miyahara. But yeah, I thought it was good. It was good setup for Nakajima coming out as well. But yeah, solid. But one of them, I'm not emotionally invested in it to the extent I think you would be. I always feel like I'm trodden on sacred ground here when it comes to this. I'm choosing my words carefully. It was fine. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say on it, to be honest.
Kento Miyahara match is a kind of Kento Miyahara match. I'm not doing it to say I'm probably higher than you. I'd say 4.25. I've seen a lot of people give this a lot of really high praise. I'm a fan of both of these guys, so I'm more predisposed, I think, to just generally enjoying it as well. It's just, there's always the thing with Kento Miyahara is you want to see him being given a much bigger stage. He deserves a much bigger stage. Like, to see him like kind of working in a bigger venues in front of more people would be something that would just be really nice for him to be able to do. But it's solid grounding. Like, they're doing the best job they can do, putting Yuma Aoyagi into that Kento Miyahara mix. There's a whole story with them being tag champs, and like, Yuma Aoyagi certainly was like the head, like one of the head trainers for the All Japan dojo as well. He's very much kind of woven into the fabric of that company. And he's not an old bloke. Like, that's the thing. It's just like this little bit of freshness at least. And I think the impression I got from the ending of it, if anything, is that and Kento Miyahara is great at doing, like, just playing heel at points, which is really weird with both of them this match. They both kind of play heel to the crowd at various points, which I kind of liked, because I just think, well, you can do this stuff. Like, this is, why not tell the obvious story? You're just sort of telling a story of these guys. Both of these guys can be dicks if they want to be. And Miyahara can do it with a kind of better, I think, with a much better dead face expression than what Kota Ibushi can as well. So yeah, 4.25 for me.
A bit on the long side for me is the only thing I'd say. Like,
yeah,
using the full like 30 minutes or so, but yeah, it was good. And yeah, fans bit on the big near falls, all you can really ask for a big time main events. But yeah, be interested to see what Nakajima does in All Japan, and genuinely, yeah, him and Miyahara going at it again. I will watch that. Anything else you've watched, Stephen?
Well, I did, and I don't know if you watched this one. This was a match. Actually, I'd heard about it on our Discord, and it was brought up in the Japan section, and people spoke about it. It's from the 12th of October, and it was Fuminori Arby versus Takuya Nomura from Big Japan. And it was, but except it was like it was like a produce show by them two, because apparently they're big mates. Not that you get that impression when you see them kind of wrestle each other and try and beat the shit out of each other and do fucking headbutts and all sorts here. But I felt like I should see it as much as anything else. And it's not as long as the Yuma Aoyagi Kento Miyahara match. I mean, I liked this. It's very black boots, black trunks, like literally in the case of both of them.
So I did watch this, and it's like you're never selling it to a Matty. Like, the no commentary as well is tough, even for me.
Yeah.
It felt, feels like what it feels like. It's just two wrestlers in there without that kind of sound effect behind it. So it makes it feel a little bit on the dry side. But I don't know. They did do a little bit of comedy at the start with the whole "did you kick my nipple" thing or whatever it was they were doing at the start, and it did it was one of those where it escalated into like the violence more than anything. I watched it a few weeks ago now, so about a week and a half ago now, just because people were going on about it on the Discord, and I threw it on at one point, and it's what I was advertised, fucking hard hitting and headbutts and kicks that make it look like the next person's gonna die. 100% that, but with a crowd that really loved it. A crowd that was the other big note from watching it. Like I loved how mixed the crowd was. It's like a mix of like young people, old people, couples, all kinds, fucking losing, like kind of laughing along with them at the start, but then as it gradually got more violent, getting louder and getting more and more into it. I meant to mention it to you last week. It was fun watch.
Yeah. That's the thing about it. I think I'd probably, because it's like no expectations necessarily, and it's not, like I say, it's below 20 minutes, like I think about 18 as well. And I kind of, I don't like headbutts in wrestling. I'm just going to throw that out there as much as anything.
There was some gnarly headbutts, like
literally
you were getting like literally like hard way blood from like the headbutts. That's how bad it was getting.
It's on Arbe, isn't it? It's just like fucking hell. This is like not particularly nice. But and then there's bits where like Nomura would fight up and then just fucking Arbe would twat him, like and he would just go straight back down. And it's a lot of that stuff, and it's very like evenly matched. Like I thought throughout, and what would I give this? I think my initial rating is I was like 4 stars, but I probably mean that in quite a like necessarily like in quite a positive way. I don't watch much Big Japan. I don't have as much investment in these guys. Fuminori RB is someone who Jamesy had kind of introduced me to him when he done Match of the Month, and Fuminori RB came up, and it was like fucking hell, like really fucking good. I'm sure he's done WXW and the like as well. Sure that being the case. I know there's people certainly within our Discord as well who will always speak very highly of like Big Japan. And we've seen Daisuke Sakamoto and stuff like that. And so I always kind of think, this is. I look at a match like this, and I'm kind of glad I've seen it. It's the thing I've been trying to do is just to broaden out on the stuff that I end up, watching. And I didn't feel like I'd wasted my time watching this match. That way.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, I think if that's the roundup of everything JP's watched, all that's left is the roundup of the news. Isn't much other titular news out there really. Tony Khan's big important Dynamite announcement is kind of taking the headlines at the minute. Obviously, Dynamite's also got the Shida versus Willow Nightingale match added to it as well. It's in Louisville, Kentucky, though, JP. So might get a Jim Cornette appearance. Who knows?
Might get an Al Snow appearance.
Could happen. There you go. Pay off the OVW links there. The only quick story I wanted to mention, obviously, we covered the Nakajima story as well. Just in the run of things. Any expectations on Lance Inoue? He says he's benefited from the success of the Bloodline story in WWE, and within his words, love to be a part of it. As we were told this week that he's been granted his release from MLW. In addition to your other favorite, JP, Juicy for now. A lot of the clickbait sites have been running straight to new Bloodline members coming soon. I don't know. I think you'd probably want Jacob Fatu over these two if that was ever going to be a thing, JP.
I was going to say, if you're bringing in somebody from MLW to join this storyline, I mean, you like to think Jacob Fatu in there first of all. It's the benefit of having some kind of Polynesian like kind of background in wrestling can't be understated, and I'm sure they'd all love to be involved in the Bloodline. Yeah, who wouldn't want to be involved if you're a professional wrestler in the Bloodline storyline? Regardless of what we think of it as well, you'll do fucking all right out of this. As well at the same, even if you're just effectively the job guy for the Bloodline, fine. Like, look at fucking Solo Sikoa. Like, he didn't mean anything in NXT. Up there now, and he's wrestling John Cena. Like, this is mental stuff on there. Not the only person they're not the only, Juicy for now, by the way, no. Like, he just doesn't have, like, yeah, he is shy, and he doesn't have the shape at all, like, for what they would be wanting in WWE. I mean, the other big star, the other one of my boy Hammer, basically, Alex Hammerstone has requested his release as well there at the same time. to be honest, he's done as much as he ever could do in MLW, and he should be using that friendship with MJF at this stage to be able to kind of make a play into it. It's going to be interesting where he comes in next, because he does have a look. Like, if I was NXT, like, I think he'd be perfectly fine to go into NXT. You could rebrand him, change the name, everything else. He wouldn't. I don't think there's enough of a groundswell of you must keep the name Alex Hammerstone in order for this guy to kind of work as well. And that was my immediate thought was, yeah, NXT. Just see, he's got the initial look to get himself on TV. Yeah, exactly. They'll sign him up. He's not going to be necessarily the most expensive person on there, but they're cycling out talent, MLW, as they kind of have to do. Like, they don't need to have people on massively long-term contracts and everything else. They just need to have those kind of core people, and they got as much out of Alex Hammerstone as they ever could do. It's just sort of run its course, isn't it? His run there has run its course. So, you know, life moves on.
Definitely. Well, there we go. On that happy note, that's all the news taken care of. Pretty much, kind of covered it as we went. I'll let you do the full Raw and SmackDown ratings when it comes to the midweek update. But speaking of which, obviously a busy month coming up. Thank you everyone who's stuck with us on Patreon over the month. It's been a very rewarding one, if challenging one, with us doing the Halloween Havoc 2000 review this month. But we got through it, JP, together. We got through Spooky Month. But yeah, obviously going forward, it's a new month starting up. No better time to join the GRAPPL Patreon or become a YouTube member, where you can get the video versions of the episodes directly to you in your YouTube feed as well. But yeah, Mixtape Survivor Series matches coming up. 5-1 top 5 tag teams. Then a month one we'll be doing a limited poll on until the patrons get their trust back. And we'll obviously have Simon Mulvaney's King of the Mountain pick, and obviously the big debut, which is Bretro later this month as well. So plenty going on, JP. Anything other than that to plug?
I would patreon.com/grapple. Like I say, like you said before, we've had the spooky season month. I'd highly recommend, in their own different way, all of the shows from that. They're all very, very different to each other. The Robert Brocky King of the Mountains special on spooky moments in wrestling, I loved that. That was I think it's a really good show. So if you haven't heard that, go listen to that as well. And yeah, we'll be back together with the weekend show this weekend, previewing all the big events coming up in the week, and then obviously our Dynamite report will be going up onto there as well, where I'm sure we'll be absolutely rock solidly positive behind the company in every way, shape, or form.
Can't wait. So there you go. Patreon.com/GRAPPL for all that. Get all that. You even get Matty in his dressing gown based on on tonight. Well, if you miss,
is he Rick Rude? Is he Tyson Fury? Well, you sign up to the video tee, you'll find out.
45 minutes of bonus, Matty and Gareth, who can sell the Patreon more than that. But yeah, outside of that, go for folks. Have a great rest of your week. And yeah, thank you to all of our patrons for another month. Thank you, Carl Gack, Robert Brocky, Conor O'Loughlin, Eddie Sidebins, Chris Platt, and Simon Gunn, and also Simon Mulvaney, who will be going through his show this month. But yeah, all there's to say is goodbye, folks, and have a great one.
Bye.
Good night, all.